Well, welcome to our City Council meeting this evening. It's good to see you all here. I've not seen this many people here in a long time, so it's good to have you here. I know that we have a number of students from Rancho Buena Vista High School that are here because of their community service opportunity, and we welcome you here and hope that you enjoy it. We'll begin our meeting. Of course, this is a consolidated agenda. It includes our Community Development Commission, our Buena Sanitation District meeting, as well as the City Council. And so we'll begin by having our City Clerk acknowledge that we're all here.
The record will reflect that all members are present.
Okay, we're very privileged to have Sister Madeline Fitzgerald here from St. Francis of Assisi Catholic Church, and she's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then if you'd remain standing for the invocation. Sister Fitzgerald.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pause for one moment of silence. Almighty God, Creator of the universe, we are your people gathered here tonight. We pray for your guidance in all our endeavors. Enlighten our minds with understanding and perception, that we may know your truth. Endow our wills with strength to strive for justice. Fill our hearts with love for that peace that only you can give, so that we may be at peace with one another. Almighty God, may your strength pilot us. May your wisdom instruct us. May your hand direct us. May we see our work as part of your great plan and find significance in what we do. Give us the graciousness to say yes to what is, and thanks for the honor of being part of your mysterious universe. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sister Fitzgerald. You wouldn't be Irish, would you?
As Irish as Paddy's pig.
Well, good. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate that. Next, we'll have the approval of the agenda. I think we have one public hearing 1, that has been taken off the agenda.
That's correct. There aren't
there
any
any-
others that will
that's
be
the other one.
removed and rescheduled at a later date.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We did have a closed session of the City Council prior to the City Council meeting tonight, and we'll ask the City Attorney to give a report on that closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the council did meet in closed session on the two items, CS 1 and 2, on this afternoon's closed session meeting agenda. No action was taken, and there is nothing that is required to be reported.
Very good, thank you. We have a few presentations that we'd like to make this evening. First of all, I'd like to invite Captain Tim Curran, the commander of the Vista Sheriff Station, along with Deputy Paul Mahalki, to come forward, and I'll join you down there at the podium. Hello there.
Hi.
Very special for you tonight. This is something that I don't think you're aware of, are you? Surprise. We have a proclamation here for you, and I'll read it, and that will tell you why you're here. Okay, it says, whereas Elizabeth Ramirez is being recognized as the champion in the community by the Sheriff's Department for her outstanding service and active role in the community. This award recognizes Vista residents for their acts of community service and good citizenship toward others. Whereas Elizabeth Ramirez showed her desire to make a difference in the community by signing on with the City of Vista Adopt a Block program in April of 2009. The program is a partnership between the City of Vista and the citizens to promote neighborhood pride by adopting a designated area and taking responsible for keeping it clean. And whereas Elizabeth has also shown her active spirit in Vista by being involved in the Vista Townsite Leadership Program and Community Improvement Steering Committee. And whereas Elizabeth is always looking for ways to involve herself, her family, and others in community involvement projects and community improvement projects. Before signing on with an Adopt a Block program, Elizabeth and her daughter took the initiative to pick up trash around her neighborhood and to make it a cleaner place to live. And whereas Elizabeth is a model citizen with an indescribable kindness and warmth that motivates others to make a difference in the community. And whereas the Vista City Council commends Elizabeth Ramirez on her conscientious actions and positive contributions to the community and wish her well in her future endeavors. And now, therefore, the Mayor and members of the Vista City Council hereby proclaim Thursday, November 12th, 2009 as Elizabeth Ramirez Day in the City of Vista.
Well, Mr. Mayor, you pretty much said it all. I guess I'd say on behalf of the Sheriff's Department and Captain Kern, we really appreciate the citizens that get involved and take an act to clean up their community. It helps our efforts out, and we appreciate it. So any chance we can get to recognize a citizen that does this, it's a good day.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next presentation is going to be the certificates of appreciation to our outgoing youth commissioners and the oath of office and presentation of certificates of appointment to the incoming youth commissioners. Now, many of you may not be aware, but each year there are a number of youth that are appointed to the various commissions within the city. And they do an outstanding job, and it's an opportunity for them to give community service and also to learn a lot about what's going on in their community and actually taking part in that. Now, each year we interview these students, and I am just really amazed. I shouldn't say amazed. I'm really thankful for the group that we get. They're just outstanding young men and young women, and so it's really a pleasure and an honor to award certificates of appreciation to those who have completed their service, and then to have those that are just assuming that role to come forward and take their oath of office for the coming year. Now, many of these students, there's not very many that will be here that have completed the year, because some of them are off to college and have begun their next stage of their life. But we have a couple of them here this afternoon. These are certificates of appreciation to those who have served this last year. And first is Olivia Zima. Is Olivia here? If you'd please come forward. Now, Olivia served as a youth representative to our Public Arts Commission. Did you enjoy it?
Yes.
Oh, great. Congratulations. Thank you so much. And the next is William Mitchell. Is William here? Okay, I guess not. Well, William served as the youth representative to the Traffic Commission for the City of Vista. And I remember interviewing him specifically. He thoroughly enjoyed the Traffic Commission. Are there any other youth that are here that served this past year and you didn't let us know, or you just came tonight? Okay. Okay, and your name? Alexander Bardo. Okay. Please come forward. Alexander served as a youth representative to the Crime and Substance Abuse Prevention Commission. and I trust you enjoyed that as well. Much so. Thank you very much for your service. I really appreciate it. Any others that came that served last year? Okay. Now, this next group are individuals who are going to be sworn in. So I'm going to ask you, as I call your name, to please come forward, and we'll give you your certificate, and then I want you to remain here for the swearing in by the city clerk. Leticia Trinidad? And Diana Kim? Just right here. Danielle Noble? Okay, we'll get her sworn in another time then. David Quayle Gorham? William Mitchell. He's not here, is he? He's going to be on a different commission this year. Bradley Brahe? Bray. It's good to see you. Jessica Phibson? Helen Rigby? Thank you. Oh, it's good to see you. Ian Rigby? Thank you. And finally, Janelle Wells? Thank you. Okay, if you'd remain standing here, and the city clerk will now come and... are there any others, I should say, that are newly appointed? Please come forward. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start this, and when I say aye, then you all state your name at the same time, and then repeat after me. Raise your right hands. I do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I'm not doing this. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Thank you so much. You're official.
Thank you very much, and congratulations. You can be seated. Okay, we have three more presentations that we'd like to make tonight. These are for employees that this past year, or was awarded for this past year's service, special awards. And I'd like to have Walter Hartman, Chuck Christ, and Roger Brinzel, if they'd please come forward. Okay. First of all, Walter Hartman. Walter Hartman was recently recognized as the recipient of the City of Vista 2009 Employee of the Year Award. Whereas as food services supervisor for the Senior Services Division, Walter oversees a large food service operation for the Vista program and prepares meals for 4 other neighboring senior centers. And whereas after a reduction of staff coverage this year, Walter often took on extra duties himself to avoid food service disruption and agreed to partner with the recreation to provide meals for summer day camp, up to 200 meals each day. Whereas Walter identified food service operation products that enabled the city to recover over $3,000 in rebates. He also worked on securing additional grant funds from the County of San Diego Aging Department, whereas Walter kept training high on his priority list for him and his staff, and spearheaded an energy audit after attending food service energy efficiency training. The County of San Diego Aging Department continues to use Walter's training plans as examples for other senior nutrition programs around the region. And whereas this year Walter has exemplified what it means to work together and lead by example during tough times, and is well deserving of this award. Now therefore the mayor and members of the Vista City Council do hereby proclaim Friday, November 13th, 2009 as Walter Hartman Day in the city of Vista. Okay, next, Chuck Christ. Okay, and whereas Chuck Christ, come on over here. Don't have to be bashful. Whereas Chuck Christ was recently recognized as the recipient of the City of Vista 2009 Manager of the Year Award. Whereas as a public services supervisor, Chuck was transferred to the Public Services Department 4 years ago and has made an immediate impact on the high demanding workload and setting high standards within the division he supervises. Whereas Chuck continues to impress management and staff with his positive attitude and energy he brings to the workplace. He has an excellent working relationship with his colleagues and supervisors. And whereas Chuck possesses exceptional technical expertise, management skills, and abilities, and whereas Chuck continues to be a role model to his staff and is very deserving of this acknowledgement. Now, therefore, the mayor and members of the Vista City Council do hereby proclaim Saturday, November 14th, as Chuck Christ Day in the city of Vista. Now, Roger Brenzel. It says, whereas Roger Brenzel was recently recognized as the recipient of the City of Vista's 2009 Mayor's Excellence in Service Award. Whereas, as an engineering technician too, Roger performs his daily tasks in a professional and timely manner, takes pride in his work, and is an asset to the engineering department in the City of Vista. Whereas Roger personifies all the best qualities of a city employee, and oftentimes his approach to his job stretches beyond his involvement in his department on into the community of Vista. Whereas Roger is a hard-working employee with a great sense of humor and is highly respected. And whereas Roger is dedicated to public service, always goes the extra mile, and is very deserving of this recognition. Now, therefore, the mayor and members of the Vista City Council do hereby proclaim Sunday, November the 15th, as Roger Brenzel Day in the city of Vista. Sorry, Roger. Congratulations. You all three? Come on, all three. Okay, we have one more presentation, and that is by Claudia Valenzuela. Is Claudia here this evening? She is. Claudia is with SDG&E and has a presentation regarding the smart meter program and the installation information that goes along there with that.
A accommodating us on such short notice. I'm just actually going to step off and allow my colleague, her name is Risa Barron, she's the project manager for the Smart Meter project. And we are currently in Vista. Many of you might have already experienced the change out of the meter, but she can give you more details on what the program is in case there are any questions that the community asks you directly. You know where to contact us and who to send the questions to. So if I could introduce Risa Barron, she will make the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us here today. My name is Risa Barron, and I'm with San Diego Gas and Electric. I'm going to give you all an overview of our smart meter program and the deployment plan that's happening here in the city of Vista. I do have materials I can share with you after that have been communicated to the public and will still be communicated to the public because the rollout is happening literally as we speak here in this community. So really, what is the smart meter? Does anyone in the audience have you received yours yet? Oh, okay, great. It's a program that we are, it was originally called Advanced Metering, and it's a program that is going to replace all of our meters in San Diego County, actually in SDG&E service territory, and replace it with a two-way wireless communication device, otherwise known as called the smart meter. There's going to be a lot of opportunities and benefits for customers after the meter is replaced, but between now and the end of 2011, we're going to be replacing all residential and small business customers with this metering technology. This is happening nationwide. San Diego Gas and Electric has been a leader, and we will probably be one of the first electric utilities in the nation to be completing our meter rollout. So what is this meter? Well, it's just more than just a meter. It allows us to track and read your meter electronically versus having to have meter readers, which is what is the typical way of how we've been doing it in the past. And in the future, it will also give you the ability to track your consumption usage and really have a better understanding of how you're using energy in your home. So with this new two-way technology, if there's outages, we're going to be able to identify them much quicker, and there's going to be a lot of environmental and conservation opportunities that customers can benefit from these meters in the future. We are also tying into 9,000 gas meters, and so at the time of the deployment of the electric meters, we are replacing the gas meters as well. A little bit about the history of this program. This was really stemmed from the energy crisis back in 2000 to 2001, where we had really significant peak energy demand issues, and we realized that we needed to do something as a state. So the investor-owned utilities got together and decided that we really need to come up with some conservation program for from a wide-scale deployment. SDG&E, along with the other investor-owned utilities, Southern California Edison and PG&E, put a rate case or put a proposal to the CPUC, better known as the California Public Utilities Commission, in which we were approved, and it's a $572 million capital investment, and it reaches all the goals from the Commission in terms of the state's energy plan and also our operation and customer requirements that we have to meet with the Commission. The program was approved in 2007, and now we're starting the deployment as we speak. Why is the smart metering important? Well, as you may have read in the paper, SDG&E was just awarded a $28 million grant to do wireless communication technology upgrades on our grid system. It really all starts with the meter. And once the meters are put into all of our customers and business customers' facilities, you will have the ability to access information. And also, it really helps us in terms of giving more reliable service to customers. So it's really the focal point, and from there we'll be able to do many, many more opportunities. And for those that have been following this or tracking this, has anyone heard the concept smart home energy networks? With these meters, it will allow you to use more home automation in the future, and that's really what the fun stuff is. But we have to get the meters in place in order to enable the new technology, which will be available very soon. As I said earlier, how does this really benefit you customers? Well, it enhances reliability and outage detection. For those that don't know, if there is an outage right now, the fastest way we find out is you call us. And most people can't believe that we wouldn't know immediately, but we don't have the two-way communications technology to understand that. So with the smart meters, we'll be able to know outages immediately and really be able to respond in a much quicker fashion. It also gives customers the opportunity for more control over their bills. You will be able to starting next year, log onto a website and be able to track your energy consumption. And so you'll be able to see day before information on how you use energy. And all of a sudden, if you see a big spike, you're going to go, what happened at the house at 2 o'clock? And from there, you'll be able to identify and mitigate those problems and try to find ways to conserve. So it really gives you some more information than just saying, I used 800 kilowatt hours per month. You're going to really know how you're using your energy on an hourly basis. It also improves customer service. There'll be more meter reads on demand, so you'll get more information, more flexibility for you. And then, like I just said earlier about the future homes, for those that have read it in technology magazines, you will have the ability to program your thermostat via the internet with the smart meter technology because of the communications devices that are built into the meters. You will be able to raise your thermostat, turn off your thermostat, program your appliance to cycle, defrost your refrigerator off-peak times. And so my point being is that the appliance companies or manufacturers are all in place and rolling out these products very, very soon. And from the standpoint that it really will just give you a much more greater opportunity for conservation and help the environment, and at the same time save money. So this is what the schedule looks like. We started mass installation. We started actually here in North County for residential and small business customers. We're going to, in the winter, starting next year, we're going to head down from North County into San Diego, work our way down through the county, down to Chula Vista, San Ysidro, and then we'll head up to South Orange County, which is another part of our service territory, with the expectation that the deployment would end at the end of 2011. I will talk about the stats in Vista in a moment, but I do have a couple more slides to share with you first. For those that have gotten your meter, you have received a letter from us. There's a lot of notification on what's going to happen. I did bring the materials with me. I can just leave them behind if anyone's interested. But basically what would happen is you would receive a letter from us indicating that it's time for the meter to be replaced, and there's lots of coordination and communication that does take place with the customer. We have done a lot of outreach. We've been to various community events in the city of Vista. We're going to be one here on November 28th at the county park. I guess it's a Christmas event, and we're going to be doing an LED holiday light exchange, and at the same time educating the public about the smart meter program and what's happening in your community. From a direct customer communication perspective, about 1 to 2 weeks before the meter is installed, we send the notification, we send them information of what's going to happen. And then lastly, we have been doing a number of research and focus groups from customers to really get their thoughts and opinions about this. For the most part, everyone is very excited about the opportunities of what this is going to mean for them, and really what the technology, the future technology opportunities. What happens on the day of the installation? We picked a vendor called VSI. It's a nationally recognized installer who has done a number of projects throughout the country. We contracted out for them, and they have been installing the meters for us since the beginning of the deployment. The installer will announce its presence and explain the purpose of the visit. They have proper notification and badging, so people would know clearly that they are associated with SDG&E. And we have had customers that have called, and we were able to verify that they are an employee of record, and that we haven't had any issues from that respect. They will confirm completion with the customer, and they will also leave a door hanger regardless. So we would door hang prior to the installation, and then we will also put up a door hanger after the installation. So if the customer's not home, we may just put the meter in and with the notification. Meter readers will continue to read meters to ensure that for accuracy and that the meter is properly working. So I just don't want people to think that we put the meter in and everything's automated. We really want to make sure for accuracy that there's no issues with reading the meter after the installation does take place. For a typical gas upgrade, it takes no more than 15 to 30 minutes to do the upgrade, and for an electric change-out, it's between 5 and 15 minutes. There is a brief loss to service, so for the customer, when they got home that day, there would be your little clocks and things would be shining on and off, so you'd know that the meter was installed. So that's the only, I think, major, not even a major, but just an issue that they have to be aware of. So the mass deployment, currently we have deployed about 107,000 meters. Like I said, mostly in northern San Diego County, 60,000 electric and 47,000 gas. And in the city of Vista, We will be installing around 68,000 meters. As of 11/23, which is in a couple weeks, we're anticipating 47,000 meters have been installed, and the estimated completion for our VISTA program will be in February of 2010. What's the long-term plans? Really, what are the opportunities for you as our customers in terms of these meters and what you can do with them? First and foremost, there'll be a tremendous opportunity to get information about your consumption on the web. I encourage you all to register for My Account. That will be the portal. If you go to sdg&e.com/My Account, register. You'll receive your bill online from us, but more importantly, get information about the products and services we'll be able to offer to you. We do have a partnership with Google, in which once your meter is installed, the Google partnership should be launching in about a month. And for interested customers, they could register with Google through their iGoogle page, be able to receive their daily consumption use of energy online through iGoogle. We're very excited about this because it really gives people real information about their consumption, and it's strictly consumption only. We have future plans in 2010 to really have more billing information, rate information, and those programs are being designed right now. Lastly, I'm here to answer any questions you may have on the program. I just joined the team about a month ago, and I really thank you so much for the opportunity to give a presentation about the program, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Are there any questions the council has? Mr. Gilman?
Mayor, thank you. Ms. Barron, thanks for a good presentation. I'm glad you're on board. And Claudia, thank you for all you do for working with the cities. I do have some concerns.
Sure.
Debbie Reed, your president, made a presentation to the League of Cities some time ago telling us how this was coming down and what we could expect. What wasn't clarified then, and you may be able to do so now, is that in order for many of us to manage things such as air conditioning, heating, and water heaters, and dishwashers, dryers, heavy use appliances in our homes, we'll probably, if we don't want to spend the money on a new traded in for something better device, we'll need something to be installed to help control that cost at peak times, or shut it down if we're not home, and delay the startup or whatever it will do. What is the plan for SDG&E to implement that type of support?
So just so I understand the question, your question is in terms of your appliance load for those that have older appliances that use a lot of energy.
And we don't want to get hit with peak rates, so we want to be able to shed load.
We do have a program called Summer Saver right now. It's connected to your thermostat and to your air conditioning unit. What it does, this program does, is you can sign up. It's strictly voluntary, and on those really critical peak days when we are asking customers to save energy, it will automatically, there's a wireless device connected to your thermostat, and it'll raise your thermostat by 2 to 3 degrees, thus saving the region the peak demand, but then also obviously saving, helping you with your energy costs for during those peak periods, and it's typically just in the summer months. In the future, with appliances, like I said, there will be opportunities when people do retrofit or do replace, that there will be appliances that will be cycling and know when to cycle during the off-peak times. Regarding rates, there'll be a voluntary rate program for those that are interested in participating called our time of use rate, in which you would basically be able to sign up for and receive for lower rates during the off-peak period. It's not going to be a mandatory program, but for those that could benefit that are not home during the peak times, it would really probably be an advantageous program to explore, but that program's not available yet.
The smart meters are capable now of reading, every 15 minutes what's going on. Mm-hmm. When will, in fact, we be impacted by a different rate structure possibly that causes more expense at a peak rate? When will that kick in?
My understanding, we'll be offering a voluntary time of use program in 2010. There has not been any discussion yet of a mandatory program, but for those customers that are interested in a voluntary program, like I said, it'll be available later, sometime next year, and we will be communicating to customers after the meter's deployed that if this is something they're interested in, it might be a good opportunity for them.
Okay. One question that arises from seniors. There are some seniors who will not use the internet. They just choose not to. It's invasive to them. So how will they find out really what's going on in their house and what they can do to curtail cost?
They can always call our 800 number. sdgne.com, or just call our 800 customer service. Those folks will have access to review the bill and review the online presentment that they maybe not be able to see, but still offer the products and services. We understand the internet is not for everybody, but SDG&E does offer a number of programs for seniors, for folks with medical issues and problems and concerns. Actually, I think I even brought the flyer with me. Yeah, we do have a number of programs for seniors in terms of eligibility, and there's ways that they could reduce their load. One of the programs, which is wonderful for folks on fixed income, is a 20% bill discount, which they can sign up for, and they could just do it over the phone.
And this might be available in our senior center,
Absolutely.
possibly?
And if the senior was interested in going to the senior center and logging on there, for those that might not have a computer or might need a little extra help, they can certainly log on to the account, utilize the information, and then, like I said, if the internet is not the route for them, there's always the call center and our 800 number they can call and to assist them with any questions.
If I have a solar installation on my home, will this meter run backwards as the mechanical ones have?
It will. I can't say it will run backwards because it's not the typical meter. It's an electronic number that will flick, but you will be able to see through the internet the energy that you are producing.
So I'll still get benefit of having the solar system?
Oh, absolutely,
in terms of the
absolutely,
bill.
and you will see the generation that you're producing on your presentment on the web.
Okay. And then an opportunity for you to promote something. Within your advice of the smart meters being installed, I've received several, and they are installed. There's a slip in there to get a conservation package, which includes a shower head and some other things like that, but it's not really clear as to how one would get that. You'd come to San Diego Gas and Electric, you'll
No,
ship it?
no. Actually, I brought one with me. And what anyone can do who is interested in a low-flow shower head, you can just call the 800 number, or you can go on the internet and type in sdgne.com/thermkit, or you can go to any of our community events. We're going to be in Vista on November 28th. We will have those low-flow shower heads and aerator kits there for people to sign up for, and you just receive it on the spot. If you call us or you go through the internet, they will just mail it to you.
At the community event, do I need to bring a copy of my bill?
You do not need to bring your copy of your bill. You just need to bring your driver's license, and we'll just you'll fill out the application. We can auto-populate your account number for those that don't bring their bill.
Thank you. And Mayor, last question. PG&E is apparently having some difficulties with some of their early installations, and it's something that may not have been brought to your attention as yet, but one gentleman who is taking legal matters on this, his bill went from $200 to $500 with no real explanation of why. And within Bakersfield and Fresno, there's many residents saying, what happened? All of a sudden, with smart meters, my bills have gone up. And apparently, they're working through that issue. I'm sure it'll be resolved. But do you have any knowledge of this, and are you using the same meters? Or
We're not using the same meters as PG&E. We went with a different technology. They're called the Itron meters. We have not had any of those issues that Bakersfield and Fresno has experienced. And I will say that it has become a big issue for the state in terms of people's understanding of what these meters can do. I'm not familiar enough to speak intelligently about all the details about what took place in Bakersfield, but I will say that in the event that there really was a billing issue here in San Diego, you would just contact us directly, and that we would resolve the issues and figure out what happened.
Thanks for your help.
The reliability on the meters so far have been excellent.
Quite good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, one question that I have. In the literature that I received, it indicated that when the electrical meter is being changed, it would be wise to turn off your computer, your TV, and all that. But if you don't know when it's going to be done, how do you do that? Every day, or can you make an appointment?
You can make an appointment. You just call our 800 number, and they will be happy to give you an appointment with us.
Very good. Mrs. Ritter.
So a quick question, speaking to what Mr. Campbell said here. If you put solar in your house and if you generate more electricity than you need, is it possible in the future, I know that right now they don't do that, but will these run backwards and so you can get a credit? I know that you don't do that now, but is it possible with this type of meter to do that if we get to that point?
Oh, absolutely. The meter would be just like any other meter in that respect, because it's a rate issue. It's called net metering. It is being discussed up at the CPUC, and so
Right.
I think we're just waiting to find out and getting direction in terms of how we're going to how the rates will impact customers that generate solar.
More electricity than they use.
More electricity than they use.
Okay,
And,
I just want to be sure that these meters have that possibility.
Oh, absolutely, and
Okay.
it won't be an issue.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
Appreciate
for
it.
your time. And should I leave these materials, or either or? I just wanted to make sure if
Yes,
anyone wanted to
leave them
see
with our city clerk here, then she'll make sure we get them. Okay, that concludes our presentations for this evening. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. These are items that will all be considered at the same time and with a single vote. Are there any items that the council wishes to remove from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none. I just have two from the audience, and they're only if the item is removed, and since the items aren't being removed, I won't call on these individuals. So we'd entertain.
Make a motion for the consent calendar.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the consent calendar. Please cast your votes. Okay, those items are all approved unanimously. We'll next go to our discussion items, and the first one is D1. This is Responsible Beverage Sales and Service Ordinance. And Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Patrick Johnson. I'm the Assistant City Manager, and with me is Lynn Dedman, Management Analyst in the City Manager's Office. Lynn will be giving the report tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. The Responsible Beverage Sales and Service Ordinance being introduced tonight would require employees who sell or serve alcoholic beverages at establishments in Vista to attend a Responsible Beverage Service Training course certified by the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. The purpose of the ordinance is to promote a safe community by preventing alcohol-related accidents and deaths and to discourage underage drinking. Responsible Beverage Service Training is a 4-hour course that teaches employees to avoid over-serving patrons, identify inebriated customers, and avoid serving underage customers. The course also helps managers and employees understand state alcohol laws and policies. Responsible Beverage Service Training certification can benefit establishments by potentially reducing insurance liability premiums and can reduce criminal and civil litigation liability should an incident involving alcohol occur. The City of Vista currently offers licensee education on alcohol and drugs, or better known as LEAD training, in the council chambers throughout each year. The course is funded by ABC and provided free of charge for attendees. Since 2003, the cities of Poway, National City, Solana Beach, and San Marcos have adopted similar ordinances. Vista's proposed ordinance would apply to all establishments that require an ABC license to sell or serve alcohol. There are currently 94 licensed on-sale establishments and 61 off-sale establishments that would be required to comply. Staff would like to clarify that nonprofit organizations that hold special events that require one-day ABC licenses would not be required to comply with the ordinance. ABC has their own provisions which may require a condensed training course for servers at nonprofit special events. However, nonprofit organizations that have standard ABC licenses as part of their normal operations, similar to a retail establishment, are required to comply with the ordinance, and there are 3 in the city currently. If adopted, existing establishments would have 180 days from the date the ordinance is adopted to certify employees. New hires would have 90 days from the first day of employment to comply with the ordinance. Training certification is valid for 2 years. Therefore, employees will be required to take a refresher course every 2 years to maintain their certification. Staff conducted the following outreach efforts to engage the business community. All 155 establishments in the city were invited by mail to attend one of 2 workshops on this topic. The workshops were held on September 29th and 30th in the council chambers. The purpose of the workshops was to provide an opportunity for establishments to learn about the ordinance and provide feedback. Both workshops were lightly attended, and staff received no negative feedback regarding the ordinance from attendees at either workshop. Questions about the ordinance focused on the availability of training, achieving compliance, and where future updates and information can be found. Staff informed the Vista Chamber of Commerce and Vista Village Business Association about the proposed ordinance and pending workshops. Staff also presented information about the ordinance at the Chamber Government Affairs Committee meeting on October 1st. Information about the proposed ordinance and available LEAD training was placed on the city's website, as well as staff information to answer any questions businesses may have. This concludes the presentation. Mr. Johnson and I are available to answer any questions you may have.
There are several people that have indicated they'd like to speak. Do you want to hear from them first before you ask your questions? Prior to that, I'd like to ask Captain Curran to come up and give us the sheriff's point of view on this particular ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Sheriff's Department strongly supports and encourages any training that increases awareness for responsible alcoholic beverage service within the city. I can provide you some statistics that I pulled for the calendar year since January 1 of this year. DUI-related traffic accidents. 2008, we had 130 within city limits. 2009 year-to-date, we're at 76. DUI arrests, in 2008, we had 441. Year-to-date 2009, 360. I pulled up some statistics also for just the on-sale businesses within the city limits, which is, there's 94 ABC licenses for on-sale. Of those 94 establishments, they generated 160 calls for service, and I had those narrowed down to disturbance type of services, service calls, batteries, fights, unknown troubles, that kind of call. We had 160 of those of the 90 in calendar year 2009. And of those 160 calls, 36 of them resulted in formal investigations, crime cases. ABC, Alcoholic Beverage Control, has done some saturation investigations within the city limits this year, where they've made 3 arrests for selling liquor to a minor, and they've issued 2 citations for selling liquor to a minor. And those were generated primarily by ABC. Any other questions that I can try to answer?
No, guess not. Thank you. Okay, as I call your name, if you please come forward. Those that have requested to speak on any item on the agenda this evening, you're giving a 3-minute time. First of all, representing the Vista Chamber of Commerce, Brett Schossenbach. Brett?
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. The Chamber of Commerce is not here to support or oppose either way this item, but we would request that you would possibly table it for 1 month. We have not had a chance to fully look at it, and the big question we have is, listening to the statistics from Captain Curran, is this ordinance overkill for those people whose ABC license is only to serve beer and wine? And that's really our only concern. We're all about responsible beverage sales, but we'd like to look at it a little more in depth and see, are these incidents really taking place with those who sell hard liquor, or is it truly across the board all businesses that are serving liquor? But if it's not, then we don't want to overburden those who are simply having an ABC license for beer and wine. So that's our request, that table it for a month so we can look at it a little more in depth. I know the gentleman, as he said, he came and presented to us back in early October, but as you probably are aware, we've had a little bit of changeover since then, and there's been a bit of chaos on our end of the world since the beginning of October, so we haven't had a chance to totally vet the issue, and we'd like to request that you postpone it for a month while our Government Affairs Committee and the Board look at it a little bit more in depth.
Okay,
Thank you.
Next, Erica Leary.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I think you pulled from the back end. I just turned in my slip, but I'm happy to have the opportunity to address you here this evening. My name is Erica Leary, and I'm a program manager with the North Coastal Prevention Coalition, which is managed by the Vista Community Clinic. And unfortunately, recent tragedies here in Vista and throughout North County serve as a sober reminder that alcohol can be a deadly product. And I would urge you not to delay and not to wait and study further that alcohol has tremendous impacts on our communities. Would server training alone have prevented these tragedies? Maybe, maybe not. But now's the time that we all need to look at every sector of our community to see what we can do to solve our problems. in society, it's never one answer. There's never one silver bullet. It's everybody in every sector working together. Ensuring that all employees who sell and serve alcohol are properly trained in laws and responsibilities is a critical part of ensuring ways of reducing alcohol-related problems. Most other industries, especially those that can impact public health and safety, have training and certification requirements, such as food handlers' cards, automotive technicians, even barbers have required coursework. But there's currently no training requirement for those that are given the authority and the responsibility to dispense alcohol in our communities, whether it's beer and wine, which are also alcohol and cause no fewer problems than hard liquor, and actually beer is the drug of choice for young people. And alcohol is associated with the leading causes of death and injury for young adults, including motor vehicle crashes, homicides, and suicides. And I know from experience in working in this area that once employees get to training, they really like it. Back in 2005, we partnered with the City of Vista in coordinating training programs, and it took a lot of work getting people there. Only a third of the businesses came, and nearly half only sent one person. But of the 99 people that came over a year's period to 4 trainings, 99% would recommend the training for other people. 63% had never been to training before, and 90% said they were likely or very likely to change the way they did their job. One quote ended that they said, "This session gives you a lot of helpful information to prevent crime and illegal activity." So I think this is a great opportunity to ensure the safety and health of Vista residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Chuck Rabel.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Chuck Rabel, 821 Crescent Drive. There's a lot I object to, but primarily the license or the training requirements for beer and wine. There's a number of people in the community, in the chamber, that are closed at 2 o'clock. John at Curbside, he's closed at 2 o'clock. The likelihood of anyone in his establishment having too much to drink between when he opens and 2 o'clock is absolutely remote. The idea that this is free, it's not. Okay? If you send employees off-site for 4 hours, you're going to have to pay them. The biggest thing I object to is the idea that this ordinance would make beverage sales in Vista responsible, which implies that the people that are currently selling, okay, are not responsible, and that's just not so. Again, if you could separate out the beer and wine, the operations like Sam Felicia, who closes his place, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, might serve altogether 2 bottles of wine. It would make more sense, that's all. These people are part of the community. They're not part of the problem. I don't see, they tried to give you some objective evidence that there is a problem. I just don't see it in this document. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Celeste Young.
Good evening. My name is Celeste Young, and I'm a prevention specialist with North Inland Community Prevention Program. We're a program of mental health systems, and I'm also the chair of the Responsible Beverage Sales and Service Work Group of San Diego County. I'm currently working with San Marcos as they roll out their Responsible Beverage Sales and Service Ordinance, which they adopted back in April, and that goes into effect November 27th. We began holding the lead trainings in San Marcos back in March of 2009 in anticipation of this ordinance being passed. And since that time, we've held 20 lead classes and we've trained 867 people. At the conclusion of each training, we ask that each participant complete a short survey providing us with information about them and what they thought about the course, because we're always trying to improve it for the people who are attending the trainings. 98% of the respondents answered that they would recommend this training to other people who serve and sell alcohol. And of those respondents, 80% have indicated that they've never attended responsible beverage sales and service trainings, and 50% say they are very likely to change the way they do their jobs. 35% say they are likely. So we've got 85% there who found something valuable in this training. For the most part, the businesses in the city of San Marcos have been very supportive and very appreciative of our efforts to help them, to help the community be safer and healthier. Additionally, the San Marcos Chamber was very supportive. They invited us to their government relations meetings, and additionally, we've met with their restaurant roundtables to see what we could do to make these trainings convenient for the student population, which between work and school has a hard time getting to anything extracurricular. We've worked closely with our trainer, Ken Clark, as you know, that does his ABC trainings here. He's a retired ABC investigator, and between the city of San Marcos providing us with the facilities and Ken Clark, we've been able to hold some very quality trainings at various times to accommodate the needs of the business community. I'd like to invite any of you that are here or any of the people in the audience to join us on Saturday, the 14th, from 10 to 2 in the City Hall in San Marcos, where we currently have 124 people signed up to spend a good part of their Saturday learning about this ordinance and how to be a responsible seller and server of alcohol. I'd like to thank you, the mayor and the city council, for your consideration of this RVSS ordinance, as it truly is beneficial to the entire community. I'd like to welcome you to ask me any questions that I might be able to answer for you.
We do have one question here from Mr. Lopez first, and then Mr. Gronke.
Even though you're doing it in San Marcos, can folks from the city of Vista go out there and have a
Absolutely.
class?
It's open to anyone. We've just made some special ones more, we've beefed it
Now,
up.
is there any cost here to the person coming to take the class?
No, sir.
No cost at all?
Not a cost.
No cost at all?
Not a cent.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gronke?
Thank you. The ordinance that was put in place in San Marcos, does it include beer and wine?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the other question is, how do you respond to new hires? If they have a 90-day turnaround, do you have trainings that often that you can accommodate that?
Yes, not only are there the regular, well, the special ones that we've been holding to accommodate the rollout, but the ABC has them here. They have them in San Diego down on Front Street, and all that needs to be done is you go to the ABC website and take a look at when the classes are held. In San Marcos, we are going to stop the classes at the end of November just to get through the month of December, and then we're probably going to schedule a couple of pickup classes after the first of the year for some of the businesses who claim they weren't notified.
I guess it's a question of my staff. There's an opportunity for anybody within North County to go to any other city or any other training.
That's correct. There's approximately 15 regular classes held per year, 4 to 5 here in Vista, and the ABC has stated that if there's a demand, they'll do more.
Fantastic. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Finally, we have John Byram.
Mayor Vance, council members, thank you for this opportunity to speak about this important issue. I've had the privilege to train many community members throughout North County in responsible beverage service training at special events, and some of you have been there. Since we started doing these trainings 15 years ago, special event problems have diminished greatly. That we used to see a lot of problems at beer gardens and things like that, but when we started doing these trainings, the problems went down. If volunteers need to be trained for a volunteer beer garden, why not somebody who serves alcohol for a living? Lately, we've seen the tragedy and death of our young people lately, with alcohol at the root. you know, if a person works in a restaurant, they need to be trained. They have to get a food handler's card. Yet, somebody who serves alcohol never had to. It just seems like we should be training these individuals too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Byron. That's all the speaker slips that I have. Mr. Lopez?
Thank you, Mayor. I know all about beer and wine. I've been serving it in my restaurant, Casa Linda, for 40 years. And I'd like to know, is there a reward that you give a business? Is there some type of reward you give a business that has never had one incident in his establishment? Is there? No, probably not. But I'd like to tell you that I've been there 40 years, and I've never had one accident because when you run a good shop, you run a good shop. But is this a needed thing? Yes, it is. Through education, you educate going green, recycling, all these things that we do nowadays to improve our community. And this is just one other thing to do to improve our community, especially with all the problems and deaths we've had here lately. It's very important to do this. To me, even if it costs a couple of dollars to have one of your employees go out and have that test, they should go and have that, even if it does cost a little bit of money, because it's important. Saving lives is where it's at. And tonight I am in support of this, and I hope the rest of the council is too. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell?
Thank you, Mayor. I serve on Sandag's Public Safety Committee representing Vista, San Marcos, Escondido, and Poway. And we look at all the data that has to do with issues within this region. And one of the most frustrating is drug abuse and alcohol abuse, with over nearly 60% of those people being incarcerated being impaired at the time of incarceration. We also are tying back into data that show family abuse problems, spousal abuse, child abuse, neighborhood fights, that type of thing, tying back into directly overuse of various drugs and the like. We had a case here in Vista a couple of years ago, and I won't be specific as the company, but they're a great company, and something got out of control, and some young man, I guess, overindulged and caused an accident which resulted in the life being lost of one of our students. And I won't be more specific than that because I don't know where that's all gone, but it was tragic. It was totally senseless, and it could have been controlled by good practices within the selling of the alcohol within the enterprise. I also am concerned about what happens to our public safety officers when they're having to deal with some of these situations. They can be dangerous. We can have officers injured unnecessarily because of the person being a little bit out of control. So it seems to be a problem that we could do something to improve, and this is a way to do it. Another restaurant owner was here in the audience, and I believe has had to leave, because I'd like to have had his opinion as well. But I don't think it's onerous that you're giving 4 hours of training to your employees, and if it costs you for that service, that's part of the training I think that's appropriate. I think it's a good ordinance. I think we should support it.
Mrs. Ritter?
I'm also in support of it. I think that any job, education benefits any job, and not just even the servers, and that, whatever job you have, you take ongoing training, or usually you do. And so I think that it's important. DUIs don't just happen in the middle of the night; they happen at different times. So I'm going to support this tonight. And actually, I did take lead training because it was at Kiwanis. I was volunteering at Kiwanis to be a server, and so I took the lead training so I would safely serve people.
Mr. Gronke?
Just a question of staff. What legal obligation does an owner or a server have if someone leaves their establishment and gets involved in an accident? Can they be held liable? Can they be held responsible?
They could be held liable. They could also receive fines from the ABC as well as criminal activities.
So they could go to jail?
It's possible, yes.
So this could be considered good business practice if we were to tell the business owners that, they need to protect their servers and protect their employees by implementing this type of ordinance.
The practice would help educate the servers, which would hopefully protect the businesses.
And protect the business. Well, thank you.
Well, I too agree with the remaining members of the City Council. I appreciate the fact that the Chamber would like us to delay this, but I think it's something that's needed at this particular time in Vista, and I think we need to move forward with it. With that, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
And a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, that one passes unanimously. The next discussion item is the Vista City Maintenance Association impasse proceedings. And I have an introduction that I'd like to read regarding this particular item. And I'll wait until we... All right. Impasse has been reached in collective bargaining negotiations between the city and the Vista City Maintenance Association. The council is going to hear from both sides and then decide to take whatever action in its discretion it deems appropriate as in the public interest. The public will have the opportunity to speak on the item. According to the impasse procedure, the Vista City Maintenance Association and the city were to file a statement of their respective positions in writing on all issues in contention with the city clerk, the city manager, and the other party within 10 days of the impasse meeting that was held on October 15th, 2009. These documents were to be submitted by October 25th, 2009. We have received the position statement from the city, but there was no statement submitted by the Vista City Maintenance Association. Our process tonight will involve a presentation by the city representative, followed by a presentation by the Vista City Maintenance Association representative or representatives, if they choose to speak, and then an opportunity to respond by the city representative. The public may speak on the issue after the presentations, and opportunity to respond has been concluded. First of all, we'll hear from City Representative Patrick Johnson, who's the Assistant City Manager.
Again, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. With me is Nancy Hoffman, the city's Human Resources Manager. Start off with, as stated in the agenda report, the 2-year collective bargaining agreement between the city and the Vista City Maintenance Association expired in June of this year. The city's negotiating team and the VCMA team began meeting regularly starting in April. After 5 months of good faith bargaining, the city negotiating team provided VCMA with its last, best, and final offer in August, an offer that included 3 items submitted as part of a package deal that would remain on the table only if the last, best, and final offer was accepted by VCMA. In September, the VCMA general membership voted to reject the city's offer, and therefore both parties confirmed we were at impasse, and we held a final impasse meeting on October 15th. At the final impasse meeting, VCMA recommended mediation as a procedure with a neutral third party. The city negotiating team felt there was, if the city negotiating team felt there was room to move from our last, best, and final offer, then mediation would have been strongly considered. However, based on direction received, the city negotiating team rejected mediation due to the fact there was no room to move on this issue, and there was one remaining unsettled issue that we were dealing with. So as a result, we concluded with our last, best, final offer, feeling that it was a fair offer considering the economic climate. The city negotiating team and VCMA during negotiations agreed to 12 tentative agreements, which are the items listed in Exhibit 1 of the agenda report. The one item that the city was not able to reach agreement with VCMA involved the scheduling of employees and their hours of work within the bargaining unit. During the previous 2-year agreement that expired in June, the city agreed to add Section 17.111, which implemented a 410 work week on a trial basis to be continued in future years at the discretion of management. Prior to the 410 schedule on a trial basis, VCMA employees work the traditional, what we call 980 schedule, which is the same schedule that City Hall is open, and we're closed every other Friday. They were on the same schedule. During negotiations, the city negotiating team offered to continue the 410 schedule on a trial basis through the term of the one-year MOU that was offered, if a deal could be reached. VCMA did not feel confident that their general membership would approve that deal that included the limited offer. So, as a result, the city negotiating team withdrew the offer and instead proposed to remove the 410 schedule language from the MOU. The city negotiating team stated that the 410 schedule could be held in place at management's discretion, but we would retain the flexibility and the control over scheduling and did not want to be limited by having it placed in the MOU. In closing, the city's negotiating team is recommending that the City Council approve the tentative agreements as identified in Exhibit 1, remove Section 17.111 dealing with the 410 schedule from the MOU, and allow city management to continue the 410 schedule for the VCMA employees as long as the schedule is productive and meets the needs of the department, as determined by management. If the City Council accepts this recommendation, then the tentative agreements will be in place and incorporated into the MOU. Section 17.111 will be removed, and all other terms and conditions in the MOU will continue for the remainder of the one-year agreement through June 2010. This concludes the city negotiating team statement.
Okay. Next, we'll hear from VCMA Representative Ralph Royds.
Good evening. As you know by now, the closed session, you probably would have been informed that the VCMA filed a complaint with the California Public Employment Relations Board alleging that the city engaged in unfair bargaining, refused to engage in fair dealing, good faith bargaining during the conduct of negotiations and also during the impasse proceedings, or at least the impasse meeting. We warned the negotiators that this was coming. We didn't submit a statement. You can take the PERB complaint as our statement and a complete refutation of some of the things you just heard. I'd like to briefly address the 410 schedule since that was brought up. The city agreed with the VCMA over 2.5 years ago to conduct a 90-day study of the 410, the effectiveness of the 410. And the city told the negotiators for the VCMA at the bargaining table at that time, I wasn't there, but this was admitted to by the city during these proceedings, these negotiations, that the city would conduct a study. A study means that you get data, that you do something with that data, that you have goals that you set, and then you either decide whether or not you've achieved the goals or you failed to achieve them, and why. You do something with the data. We asked during these negotiations, show us the data. You now say at the very end of the process that you want to remove the 410 from the current MOU. Now, we dispute the fact that that was discussed as a regular course of negotiations. That was actually done at the last minute, and that's why we're alleging it's an unfair practice and a violation of California labor law. We asked for the data. The city had to admit that it was embarrassed that it didn't have any data. It never conducted the study. Yet now, the city wants to say, we want to remove the 410 from your work schedule, but we can't really tell you why. The real reason why is because the VCMA had the temerity to ask difficult questions during negotiations representing the interests of its members. Simply prove one way or the other that it works. They can't do it. So now why do they want it to come out of the MOU? Payback for asking tough questions. I don't want to get too deep into the complaint itself. The merits of the complaint will stand, we think, with PERB, and at some point you may find PERB ordering the city to unring this bell. So I don't want to get too much into that. But more important than that, well, maybe not more important than that, but moving forward after you decide one way or the other on impasse is what we're going to do in the future. Because when negotiations started, VCMA was asked, in essence, to be a team player. look, we have problems in the city. We got economic problems, and what we want to do, not the VCMA, what the city wanted to do was simply take a meat-axe approach. We want 5% from your pay. That's how we're going to solve the problem. VCMA, along with the VCEA, because the same negotiators handled both tables, it was labor that came up with the idea and the flexibility of what you now see on your tentative agreements as a collapsible furlough program. That came from us. That met your needs and it met our needs. We don't get a permanent pay reduction and a loss of benefits. You get money back during a period of economic problems. It wasn't the city's idea. VCMA came to the table and tried to be a team player, a partner in solving your problems. And now, at the end of the process, they're being told, we don't have any justification for taking away the 410 out of your MOU, but we're going to do it anyway because you asked for it. You didn't agree with us completely with all of our concessions. And as you'll see, there's only a couple of minor agreements that we have that even cost a few dollars. It's mostly work rules. That's what we agreed upon. VCMA now has taken the position, why should we cooperate with the city in the future? And we came up with great ideas. We came to the table, bargained in good faith. Now we're getting kicked in the teeth at the very end. That's why you got the PERB complaint. That's why we're going to aggressively pursue it. And hopefully it'll get resolved in everyone's favor. But if not, that's the way it goes. But the larger issue is moving forward, as I said before, that notion of good faith and fair dealing is pretty much evaporated. And I'm concerned as their representative that in the future, we're just going to be butting heads. Because it's not in VCMA's best interest to sit down and start giving up things to help out the city when you're going to have that kind of an action at the very end of the process. So our position is that you should take a look at the PERB complaint. If you haven't seen it already, I'm sure your legal counsel is going to advise you upon it shortly. Use that as a starting point to ask some difficult questions, because some of what you're being told just is factually inaccurate. We have a very different take on those facts. And we would ask you to, before you take such a position, do some more investigation. And we stand ready to talk if we're asked to do so. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next would be Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Just as a reply, I'd like to say that the city did in fact negotiate in good faith. We did not violate any provisions of the Milius-Myers-Brown Act or discriminate against any of the association members or the association itself. So we disagree firmly that we were not engaging in good faith bargaining. To touch base on the 410 study from 2 years ago, in fact, the city did authorize the 410 schedule on a trial basis for 2 years. There was no study completed, so we did not analyze the productivity or potential benefits of the 410 schedule. We did offer to VCMA that we would allow the 410 schedule to continue for the remainder of the contract period through June 2010 on a trial basis, at which time we would look at different analyses that we would come up with to figure out if there were benefits. That was not good enough for VCMA. They wanted it permanent, and so they rejected that. So therefore, as a result, we took the 410 schedule off the table, wanted it out of the MOU, and just to clarify one more time, we are not proposing at this time to take away the 410 schedule. We just do not want it in the MOU, and we wanted a management right for us to implement or to go back to the 980 at management's choosing. Thank you.
Okay. We have one individual from the audience that has submitted a speaker slip, so we'll hear from him, and then council if you have any questions. Chuck Rabel.
Good evening again. I'll make it quick. First of all, the perspective. In the private sector, if we want our crew to go on a 4-day, 10-hour day, or a 980, or anything other than 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, we've got to go through the Department of Industrial Relations. There's a complex voting procedure that goes into place. The state chamber has been trying to change that for a long time, very unsuccessfully. Anyway, that's just, we don't have the ability to do what you do. The most important thing is the election cycle's coming up for 2010, and I would urge anybody that's running to accept and go after endorsements from public sector unions, but not accept any money, direct or otherwise. Thank you.
Okay, there were no other speaker slips turned in on this item, so City Council, what's your pleasure? Mrs. Ritter, you are first.
Well, I would just say, first off, I support the employees. I like all of them, and I have no problem with a 410 schedule. I had a business before, and I wanted to be on 410 schedule, but the state legislature voted that if I worked my employees 10 hours a day, that I had to pay 2 hours of overtime every day. So we worked the 8-hour schedule, but I see nothing wrong with a 410 schedule. However, I would like to have that option if there's a time when we need to go back to, the 8-hour schedule, 5 days a week, or whatever that might be, like in this, and what they, put in here, then I think the management should have the option of changing that. But let me just say, I have no problem with them working a 410 schedule. And I read here in 17-111, it says, the 411 schedule will be implemented on a trial basis and may be continued in future years at the discretion of the management. It doesn't say anything about the management had to do any studies or anything. It just said, at the discretion of the management. And I would like to have our management have the option of continuing it, or if it doesn't work out, not to have to do that.
Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. Your data shows that this was, you started this 410, how many years back? 2 years ago. During that 2 years, when you negotiated that contract with them, did you say you would have some type of study done within 90 days?
I did not say that personally, but we said we'd look at the benefits of the 410 schedule.
So if you said after 90 days you would come up with some type of knowledge, if it was a good thing, then it should have been cleared at that time that it was a good thing. But now here 2 years later, it was never addressed. That is a problem for me, because it should have been addressed. When you work the hours that they have, the hours that they want, many employees with those hours sometimes can't make it at home with the wages maybe sometimes that they make from the city for one reason or another. So they find other jobs, and those other jobs have certain scheduling that they have. And so when you change their hours, then it creates another problem there. So if you would have made a decision that it wasn't a good idea after the 90 days, then I could go along with what you're saying. But I'm going to have to go along with what they want with the 410 permanently.
Just a question on the 90 days.
Another thing, too, none of these folks, when Mr. Rabel said campaign money, I have never received campaign money from these people, so, for the folks from here, so.
Mr. Johnson.
I just want to comment that I'm not aware of a 90-day period to which we had to comment on the program.
Yes. When you made that contract with them, you had 90 days to...
They did. What he's saying is they did not.
They did not do the study. That's right. Well, did you promise them to do the study?
No, we said we'd look into it, but we did not say there was a 90-day provision to make any sort of comments on the program. We just said we'd do it for a 2-year trial basis, and if we wanted to continue it in the future, that continuance would be done at the discretion of management.
Thank you.
Mr. Campbell?
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Lopez, don't take this critically, but frankly, I didn't understand some of your points at all.
Well, I know it's kind of hard to, but
It just didn't make any sense to me in the reality of the way this was structured and the way it's written. It was a trial period. It was never guaranteed in any way, and never committed. It was always at the discretion of management, the way it's written. It's very clear, and it should be management's discretion to continue it or not to continue it. And I heard Mr. Johnson clearly, there's no intention at this time to discontinue that program. However, in the future, there may be some reason to reconsider that, and if it's ongoing now, nobody's third job or second job is at risk with that. However, management, with certainly the scarce resources at our disposal, needs to have the latitude to set the working conditions to fit the best needs of the community and, of course, the workforce. So I have to support it. I do want to say one thing publicly. I rather resent Mr. Roy's effort in what I perceive to be intimidation through saying that labor will not cooperate with us going forward. I think better of our workers here in the city of Vista as a group. I think we have an outstanding group of employees, and I'm hoping those words, Mr. Roy's, were yours and not that of our workforce.
Mr. Gronke?
thank you.
I'm a union guy, you know, the teachers have a union, and when we go through negotiations, we commonly get surveyed on our positions, you know, the positions that are put forward. I don't know, is there someone here to represent them that would answer that question, whether or not the employees got surveyed as the points of the negotiations came back to them? Or can you answer that question?
I think you'd have to talk to a representative from the association.
Do you care to answer that question?
Could you restate that? I'm not sure.
My question is this. As you go through your negotiating process and certain points are brought to your attention, exactly what the contract may look like, do you take that information back to the employees and allow them to give input into whether they agree with those points of the contract?
Oh, that comes from the employees. They're surveyed before negotiations ever begin to find out what the issues are that they want to put on the table. They are the source, they're the genesis of those proposals.
So at the time that the contract is to be signed, then you go back to them and resurvey them and make sure that the points are agreeable?
Yes, during the course of the negotiations and also at the tail end, when they reviewed the city's last, best, and final proposal, they're asked what their position is. So they're surveyed before, during, and after.
And so the sticking point on this one happens to be the 410 workday?
Yes.
That seems to be the point of contention.
That was the tipping point.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And a question to staff. When it comes to the, I forgot my question now. I should have written it down. I apologize. But I've forgotten my question. Well, I will.
You're much too young to have senior moments.
You'd be surprised. Let me ask the city attorney, though. There's nothing in the action taken by the representative when it comes to the outside agency that we should be concerned about when it comes to the way that we negotiated this contract?
Staff was advised by professional outside labor counsel who oversaw, to my understanding, all of the proceedings, and I know from myself of no reason why there should be any concern in that regard.
Okay. And in that interlude, I've discovered what my last question was.
Please.
Of staff. Can we, going forward with this, if we were to go to the impasse, can we determine at this time that we will have a study of the efficiency of the 410? Can we make that statement at this time?
Well, we are at impasse, and that's at the discretion of the city council if that's something that you wanted to implement or put forth.
I think we should. There appears to be some type of promise in the past that would have occurred, and since it didn't, I think there's no reason that shouldn't occur in the future. So I would ask my colleagues to at least put that into it.
Mrs. Ritter?
What would, exactly what would you study? What the impacts are on the city, or what the impacts are on the employees?
It appears that staff has an ability to maintain records as to the efficiency of the 410 as opposed to a regular workday. Is that not true? Did you not make such a study?
We'd have to develop the criteria and understand what the criteria would be to gauge a level of productivity or a level of benefit to the department as opposed to working the 980 schedule.
Are there other agencies that have gone through similar studies that we might take advantage of?
I'm not aware of one. We're not aware of one.
So to imply that there's such a thing as a study that we could do that would determine the efficiency of such a schedule is probably not a true statement.
Yes, I'm not aware of a study that's been completed. I'm not saying there's not one out there or criteria, but we're just not aware of it.
I have a question. So are you talking about efficiency, or are we talking about what works best for the city at a certain time period or whatever? I mean, you could go to 410. I mean, I'll just take my business. When we were really busy shipping things, then we would work the 8-hour, the whole 8-hour week, because it was more efficient. That was our more efficient week. Then we would go to a 410, sometimes, but when we could do that. But I know, are we talking efficiency with the city? I mean, I think they're very efficient, 10 hours or 8 hours. They can be the same efficiency. It's just as what works better for the city at the time, the jobs or whatever.
Mr. Gronke, were you done before Mrs. Ritter?
I was going to respond to her.
Okay.
Now, it just appears to me that if you have one schedule versus the other schedule, there has to be some way to determine which one's the better schedule at a particular time for our city. Let's say within the parameters of our city at certain times of the year. There has to be a way to determine which one's a better schedule for our employees. For the city at certain times. Just a point.
Okay. Mrs. Ritter, did you have some more comments? Mr. Campbell.
Well, I know in private industry you have large corporations with people standing around with clipboards and really annoying everybody trying to work with their standing there and overseeing what the efficiency is. However, it's done for probably all the right reasons, for it to be fair to labor and also to make sure management's managing properly. And I think maybe in outgoing years that could be, Mr. Gronke, something that could be done, but you'd have to design a study. The study can't be for a week or a month. It's going to be over some period of time where you could actually measure and have the metrics work, and so you could evaluate it. So I think it's an ongoing process that could be considered, but for the purposes of we're at a point now, I think we need to make a decision one way or the other, and then consider maybe your idea in outgoing years. So I think we should move forward with the decision this evening.
I'll agree to that. I mean, I can understand that we're under certain hardships right now, economic hardships, and these are probably the best times for these studies, but it would appear to me that probably in the future there might be a time when we can do something like that. So, okay.
Mrs. Ritter, did you have another comment? Oh, I'm sorry, your name was on here. Okay. The remaining portion of this contract is what, 7 months?
That's correct.
7 months. And so then, at this point, if the council decides to not allow the 410, or to, I shouldn't say that, because I think that's not the issue. The issue is whether it becomes a permanent part of the MOU. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And I firmly believe that the city really has that, should have that priority, or should have that ability to determine whether or not it's going to be a 410 week or whether it's going to be a 980 week. I think that's something that the city has always had, has had the opportunity to do, and to make that decision. I know that when we've changed different work weeks for different segments of the city staff, there was a lot of work that went into determining what was best really for the citizens of the city of Vista, as well as for the organization as a whole. So I think that management still has to maintain that ability to determine really what the work week is, and so that I would have to go with that. I understand that the city's more than willing to go ahead with the 4-10 week, and that there hasn't been any change, proposed change in that in the near future, or in the future at all, but that I think we need to have the opportunity to change if circumstances warrant that. Are there any other comments from the City Council? I would then entertain a motion.
I'd appreciate some help in framing the motion. I propose that at the discretion of management, we continue with the 410 as long as it makes sense to management, and management can determine that in its sole discretion, and that would require then, for purposes of this discussion, eliminating Section 17.1.11. And Mr. Piper, would you make sure I've stated my motion correctly?
I believe your motion would actually be framed out of the recommendation on page 3 of 5, and that the motion that I believe you would indicate you would like to make is that the City Council approve the tentative agreements as shown in the report, remove Section 17.1.11 from the MOU, and allow city management to continue with the 410 schedule for public services personnel as long as the schedule is productive and meets the needs of the department as determined by management.
That is a significant improvement to my motion, and I would like to adopt that motion.
Is there a second to that motion? We have a motion and a second. Just one further comment is that I've had a long association with the city and in various capacities, and it truly bothers me that this is the first time in all the 40-some years that we've been a city that we've come to an impasse. And I have to agree with Mrs. Ritter that, we do have a great staff, and it bothers me that we have to be on an adversarial basis. I know that in previous years, when we did have disagreements, there was some very deep disagreements, but we were generally able to work them out. And I hope that I guess I wanted to say that I do appreciate the fact that we do have a hard-working staff, and I'm sorry that as a city council that we have to come up with a complete disagreement of what you're proposing. So with that, I'll ask the council to vote. That passes with 4 council members voting yes and Mr. Lopez voting no. Thank you very much. For what?
You just want him to read it under oral communications.
Okay. Okay.
You don't have to read it out, Lisa.
Pardon?
Just explaining it. You don't want to read it out.
We can read it under oral communications.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is the fiscal year 2008-2009 fourth quarter financial report. Gardner.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and everybody in the audience and at home. My name is Tom Gardner. I'm the finance director for the City of Vista. This evening, we'd like to present, as we do annually, the fiscal year fourth quarter financial report. I have with me Dale Nielsen, the city's finance manager, and he'll be briefly reviewing the outcome of the report. I will provide a separate review for Prop L at the end of his remarks, and am available for any additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Before you, we are presenting the fourth quarter report for the year ended June 30th, 2009. As you know, it has probably been one of the most difficult years that we've seen come around, that we've had to deal with in a long time. We came back to council on the quarterly reports and had to make several material adjustments to the adopted budget as we went through the year. Some very painful decisions had to be made. But to summarize, total general fund revenues from outside sources for the year totaled approximately $59.9 million. After adjusting for a large legal settlement that was received in the prior fiscal year, that amount is still about $1.3 million less than what we received in fiscal year 07-08. Exhibit 2 provides detail on general fund revenues for the year. Total general fund expenditures for the year totaled approximately $66.9 million. Once again, I am happy to report, as in the past, every general fund operating budget will finish the fiscal year within their budgetary appropriations approved by the City Council. Exhibit 4 provides detail on general fund expenditures for the year. Total general fund balance as of June 30th, 2009 was approximately $46.4 million. Exhibit 6 provides detail of the general fund balance with all the specific reserves and designations of the general fund balance. After accounting for those reserves and designations, there is a little over $3.7 million in year-end fund balance available. Page 2 of the staff report lists the city manager's recommendations for the use of those funds. Thank you.
Mr. Gardner, anything else?
In summary, in terms of Prop L, which I know of are great interest to citizens and members of the council, for the year ending, obviously in June 2009, we received about $5,491,000 in Prop L, and we expended about $1.5 million. A chart is provided to the council in the report on page 3, on Exhibit 1, page 3. Since its inception, $11.7 million has been received in Prop L at the end of last fiscal year. Year to date through September now is a little over $12.6 million. In expenses, about $7.1 million has been expended of Prop L. The largest portion of that, $4.1 million, was cash donated to creating the capital projects themselves as part of the bond funding. The rest is in debt service payments and in both sheriff's and fire expenditures. Again, at the end of 2008-09, we had $4,592,384 in reserve after the receipt of funds and the expense of expenses. Provided to the council 2 handout sheets. The first is a vertical sheet, and if Marcy, you want to put that on the overhead? I don't know if it will fit, but the vertical sheet, which can be available to the public, is the same sheet we provided to the advisory committee, and that sheet indicates all of the revenues as we receive them per month. You can see that they average somewhere between $300,000 and $600,000 a month, depending upon the state's apportionment to us. So far this year, July, August, and September have been about $456,000, $459,000, $346,000 respectively each of those years. Our current net available on the far right-hand bottom corner of that sheet is $5.43 million. That's year to date. A little bit will be a slight different number than year-end last year.
That's a lot of detail. I think what we want to do is really just move to the budget summary with the totals for out to 2013-14.
Okay.
Because that shows the ramifications of the declining revenue and the higher bond payments.
Okay.
Thank you.
The horizontal sheet provided to council and is also available illustrates the same numbers through the middle columns. That is our estimate of 08-09, our final numbers for that year. The fourth column from the left is 09-10, which shows the current year's projections. And as you can see, as it goes out for the remaining 5 years of this analysis through year 2013-14, the remaining ending balance is about $2.285 million. As we've provided to council and to the committee before, we are intentionally accumulating funds so that we have resources available to pay debt service over the next few years after construction is completed and the project is completed. Included in this overall analysis is that we have been also assisting fire operational services in the new fire facilities with SAFER grants, which will be totaling $1.5 million and go on through 2011-12. So we do have some additional resources for fire operations that are outside of this analysis.
It's okay. No, thank you, Mayor and Council. We just mainly wanted to point out, it was the question, and every so often we ask with the declining sales tax numbers and revenue coming in, is how does that affect Prop L? And as we show you, is that in years 14, 15, 15, 16, what we would most likely, if it's flat as it's projected here, that we would not be able to fund the fire operating expenses from the Prop L receipts, that those would come right from the general fund, because that money would need to go to pay the bond payment, to pay the debt service. And so that you were asking before, in which year is it most likely that if revenues do not pick up at all, if they remain flat, no increases at all, where do we stand? And that means in the year 14, 15, 15, 16, one of those 2 years is that we would be most likely having to hit the general fund with it a little bit, but that's also, we will have had 7 years of being able to fund a fire operations crew from Prop L receipts. So if we hadn't had that there, we would be able to carry that out and sustain it much farther.
This analysis makes an assumption of a 1% growth in 2011-12, a 2% growth in 12-13, and a 3% growth in 13 and 14, which is a very slow upward trend after 2 flat years of revenue receipts.
Thank you.
I'd like to add one more thing. Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry. Is that on page 2 of the report, we list the fiscal impact and the items there that are recommended for the year-end fund balance on the $3.7 million. And we certainly have the $41,000 for the Vista Conservancy, which is the next discussion item on the council's agenda. $200,000 for Phase 2 of this Highway 78 landscape maintenance, which we know that we have to do for 5 years, a commitment prior to Caltrans taking that over. That money to fund the project is almost all complete from Sandag and Transnet monies to start the construction of that. We're recommending $500,000 to the PERS Stability Reserve Fund, and then the $1,650,000 for Prop 1A Reserve Fund. That's there because even though things seem to be trucking along with the California Communities Bank process, there's, I don't know, somehow not a complete trust of the whole system that everything will go as planned before the end of the year. And if we don't have something in backup for that by providing that with our December property tax receipts, it's there to back that up. And then the last amount of $1,333,000 for the operating budget reserve for either 10-11, or it may possibly need to go to this year, if depending upon what we reduce our projections for our current year receipts based on declining property tax revenues and sales tax revenues. The first quarter report for 2000, what year we're in? 2009, 2010. I'm looking at all these years. 2009, 2010 will be presented to council December 8th.
Very good, thank you. First of all, we'll ask, let's see, Mr. Gronke, you'd like to speak.
The city managers just talked about point 4 on the second page. And am I to understand we have that money set in reserve just in case that doesn't go through? But if it does go through, then that would release the 1.6 that we would get back from the state through this banking operation.
What we would do is we'd probably still set it, we would set it aside for beginning fund balance for 2010, 2011.
Okay. So it's not going to be freed up to be utilized for anything else. Question of staff, and I think I understand this nature of our economy right now, but because houses have seemed to have stabilized, and maybe Ms. Ritter can confirm that, and it appears that sales have somewhat stabilized. I don't think they're going to continue to go down. At least that's what I read from the paper, and maybe I'm wrong. But we can still anticipate that our city agency will be affected over the next 4 or 5 years before we start to see a slow growth of 1 or 2%. Is that a fair assessment?
In terms of property tax, I just received a HomeDex report this afternoon, and gains that we had achieved over the summer are beginning to slide already. Talking to one realtor, and I defer to Councilman Ritter, sales are really mixed in different groups of housings. There is still a bit of a free fall in high-end housing that's not available on that's available on the market. Inexpensive housing, such as condominiums and those kinds of things, are being sold relatively quickly, but they're not going up in value. And of course, those things are coming back on the market at a much reduced tax rate than they might have been 2 to 3 years ago. The middle is somewhat kind of mushy and hard to kind of predict in terms of where we're at in terms of home sales. We monitor that every month with the assistance of HomeDex, which is a real estate association funded project out of Cal State San Marcos. Have we reached the bottom? Probably, but is there any indication of how it's going to go up and whether that increase in value will be sustainable? No indices in sight at this point. In terms of sales tax, we know that consumer confidence is down, though I think September numbers were a little bit better than anticipated, but unemployment is also still way down. So unless you're employed and you have money to spend, it's awful hard to figure out how the retail markets will come back with the current employment situation and people's uncertainty.
So how did you make your assumptions on that one worksheet that showed us out to 2013 and 14 for Prop L monies?
1% is a pretty small growth rate in terms of the overall growth rate. When you're looking at that, you're talking about out of a $5 million base, about a $13,000 increase. So we're not anticipating a lot in each of those years.
Okay.
Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. Question of staff. Do you know how the state's doing on its projected revenue stream so far this year?
I don't have a report on the state's revenue stream. I can't imagine that it's doing any better than ours. We tend to be kind of a microcosm, actually, of the state in terms of our demographics and our youth, so I've not, maybe
We received our sales tax report last week, is that the county was down 18%, we were down 17%, and the state was down 20%.
Yeah, that's the last numbers I heard, but I'm sensing from people I've been talking to, the state has not quite figured it out what they're going to do to right the ship, and they're looking at ways to get further into our pockets over time, and that, is it possible that could mean deferring reimbursements to us as a mechanism, which would impact our reserves, I'm sure, and so I'm glad to see you've suggested we build up our reserves appropriately. I'm also told that within the commercial market, the shoe has not fallen yet, that it will, which will certainly be 2010, 2011, 2012, because there's a lot of see-through buildings now showing up where companies have just left. They're still on the hook for the lease, and they're doing that through the end of their lease period, but there's no people working in some of those buildings. And if I could suggest that one indicator of how well we're doing is we continue to have declines in the jobs in the country. And I'm told that unless we had 100,000 new jobs created every month, that would just be enough to keep track of keep up with the growth in the population.
I read that recently.
So that's no net gain. If you had 100,000 positive, and currently we're running in the 200,000 to 300,000 negative a month, so we're short like 400,000 to 500,000 jobs really to show any potential for growth in jobs. And if there aren't jobs, people can't spend the money, and their spending habits are certainly changing to go to more generics and non-branded products and less discretionary kinds of items. So 1%, 2%, 3% I think is very aggressive. Given the conditions that I see going forward here, because I just don't see the solutions in place yet for the near term. I appreciate your being conservative on that. Thank you for considering reserves.
Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. When you spoke about the higher-end homes going down, they are somewhat, that's what I'm hearing, it's happening now until this next year. Also, commercial is going to be having a hit for the next couple of years. So tightening up our belt and sharpening a pencil has done good here with both of you. You've done a good job here. But we created this Shop Vista program, and I'd like the public to continue to, if you shop Vista, that dollar stays in Vista, and that helps our community and helps us give the services that folks need here in our community. One of the things that was, just heard a report on the type of business that was hit the most here in North County has been restaurants. And people are staying home and eating at home. And so it's difficult for restaurants right now at this point. So it's difficult for a lot of businesses. But Shop Vista and at least, will help the folks in our community and keep that dollar here.
We do have one individual who would like to speak on this item, Mr. Rabel.
I'll make it quick. Good evening again. Page 2, the use of the year-end fund balances, $500,000 for CalPERS Stability Reserve Fund. It raises a flag or a question, especially in light of what you read in the paper about CalPERS. And maybe it is time to address the retirement packages that are offered by the city. Thank you.
And I'll be happy to reply to that. The city of Vista was the only city in the county and one of the few in the state that 5 years ago with the retirement plans, our public safety, along with our miscellaneous employees, pay their employee share instead of having the city pay it. So the city employees pay their own share into PERS. And additionally, we're working statewide on an initiative to have the two-tier system, but I think that it's one of those realities. It doesn't save money right now. What we've looked at is in the years where there was a surplus or what PERS called a superfunded process where we didn't have to make a direct payment in, Vista was one of the few cities that we set aside a reserve for those good years so we could weather some of the lean years, but they're a little leaner than what anybody ever anticipated. So it's one of those things, again, where we're looking at when we know the PERS rates are going to go up. And so we are looking at setting aside another reserve again for those years come right around the corner there where it's going to go up again. But we do endorse pension reform, and the council has endorsed pension reform.
So this reserve fund covers years gone by.
We're looking to set it up for when the rates are supposed to go up in the next year and the following year.
Rates go up.
A couple percent that we're wanting to make sure that
So
covers.
the employees aren't paying.
The employees are paying their employee share into every month.
It's a split thing between the general fund and the employees.
Yes,
Okay,
definitely.
thank you.
Okay. Finally, before we take action on this, I'd like to say that in reading the report, we've had some pretty lean revenue years, or had a pretty lean revenue year, and I think the staff has responded well to that in the sense that the funds that have been expended have reflected the fact that we don't have any money to spend on them, which is, you think that's obvious, but in a lot of organizations that's not so obvious, in a lot of cities that's not so obvious. Okay, I guess the motion would be to accept the staff's recommendation in terms of how to use the year-end balance and to receive and file the report.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, and that passes unanimously. We'll next go to item D4, and this is the Vista Conservancy Trail through Sycamore Creek property, and Mr. Campbell and Mrs. Ritter have to excuse themselves on this.
Yes.
We should explain why we own property within 500 feet of the proposed project. Sorry we have to leave.
Ditto.
Okay, Mr. Conley.
Thank you, Mayor. Allow me to get my IT needs together here for 1 second. Thank you.
Well, the wait was well worth it.
I have the pleasure this evening of presenting the Vista Conservancy's agreement with the CDC and the city to license and fund the improvement of a trail on the Sycamore Creek property. Brief history on this. In March of this year, there was a bid for the Buena Vista Creek Trail project, which is just to the northeast of this area, that was rejected by the council because of inadequate funds. At that time, the Vista Conservancy expressed interest in using the Sycamore Creek property for a temporary trail. In April, the Conservancy made a formal presentation to the council and outlined what they would like to do with respect to the trail, which I'll cover. And in June of this year, we approved a right of entry agreement for the Conservancy to go into the property and make temporary improvements. This is the project area with the colored up site plan of where the location of the Conservancy's use would be. The Sycamore Creek property is shown in the yellow here. It's about 13.3 acres, and it sits back behind East Vista Way, Fire Station number 6. In general, the Conservancy would like to extend a trail from their existing trail that is north of the site through the property along the existing roadway that fronts the creek that's shown in orange. It would also connect to East Vista Way through the existing gate that provides access from the street. The trail will connect at 2 locations. One would be at Wildwood Park on the south near the existing bridge, and one would be at East Vista Way at the street location, as well as the existing trail location on the south. This is an aerial photo of the project area that was taken back when the mobile home park still had some units on it. In general, the trail would follow the line that's shown on the overhead, surrounded by commercial uses along the street and residential uses to the east. These are some photos of the area that were taken as of this afternoon. The south entrance there shows the gate where the trail would connect to Wildwood Park, just on the other side of the bridge between the gate into the Rancho Buena Vista adobe and the bridge to the park. The north entrance is shown on the bottom left. That's where the existing trail connection would occur with the Conservancy's trail that runs to the northeast. In the upper right-hand corner shows the road, the existing access road that would be used for the trail. There would be a fence placed on the east side or the right side of that picture, and the area to the left is adjacent to the creek would be a use area for the Conservancy. And the existing fencing that's shown in the lower right-hand corner that separates the property from the creek would be removed as part of this proposal. The license agreement that the city's drafted up provides for use of the Sycamore Creek property by the Conservancy for a temporary trail extension, as well as cleanup and maintenance of the property and educational use. The terms of the agreement are for 2 years at minimum. There is no expiration date at this time. The agreement is set up that they get 2 years minimum, and upon written notice from either party, the city could terminate the agreement so that they have the opportunity to use it in the future until a valid development moves forward on the property. The scope of work that's been submitted by the Conservancy essentially identifies that they would clean the lower bench area of the site and would include debris removal and landscape cleanup. They would install fencing adjacent to the creek where it was necessary for safety purposes, as well as on the east side of the trail to keep people from going into the remainder of the property. And it would provide security, private security patrol for a 3-month period during its inception. And the cost of this work is estimated at $41,000, which is the amount that the agreement authorizes. And that completes my presentation. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions before we have a presentation by the for those who wish to speak? First of all, Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Brief presentation. here to answer questions, basically. We've spoken about this in great detail in the past. I would compliment your staff for understanding what the mission and purpose is. I've met recently, last week, with a representative of the Community Development Commission, and we've sort of worked out a relationship and how this work will be monitored and what is in the agreement implemented before request for payment occurs. As I would remind you, the commission, or the Conservancy, is bringing to the table the experience, the labor, and the responsibility to open this up and maintain it per our agreement. A few Thursdays ago, we held a groundbreaking, trail-breaking ceremony. It might have been considered a little premature, but it was such a lovely day, and as everybody was there, could visualize what a great connection this will be as a lifeline temporarily while other things are occurring in the community. We're excited. We thank you for the opportunity to have a joint participation. This, if you go back to the original concepts of how do you build downtowns, how do you do things, it's a partner-up relationship. And so thank you for your trust, and hope that you find your way this evening to approve and allow us to go forward.
The city manager would like to ask a question.
Yes, please.
I apologize, Mr. Kavanaugh. Did you say that looking at payment on the full $41,000 up front before when you get started,
No.
Oh.
No. Let me clarify that. Good question.
I'm worried here for a minute.
No. If I said that, what we talked about is, and the way the agreement is drafted, upon the completion of each element of work,
Okay.
there would then be the opportunity for payment. So we're going out, we're working, doing, producing, and then coming in and submitting for that specific task 1 through 6.
Page 17 of 22 starts that scope, and so when each of those tasks are completed, we would fund the money?
Yes.
So but I really seriously was asking, you don't need the money on any of those elements before you start the work? We can do that, I just was curious. I know you said that, especially on the outlay for the fencing is the main portion that I thought you might need that ahead of time. Well, you know what?
Well, I think you raise an interesting point. That's probably the most expensive part of it, is the fencing.
So once you let us know, we can work that out amongst the staff.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for thinking of that.
Okay, next is Chuck Rabel.
Good evening again. I'll keep it quick. Yeah, this is high time this got done. The city's been talking about this for 15 years at least. What else needs to get done is the city needs to do something with the Sycamore Creek property. The housing fund was used as a bank of opportunity to clear title for Lucas Mercier. That project went south. A good chunk of money, I forget how much, a couple $100,000, the city paid Lucas Mercier for the environmental work that was done in preparation for that project. It's a monument to how not to do things, and I'll let it go at that. Thank you.
Okay, next we have David Nielsen.
David Nilsson, 3217 Fairview Drive in the unincorporated area. Mayor, council members, and staff, I really appreciate that this is being considered. I'm in total support of it. Mr. Rabel said that this discussion's been going on for 15 years. I can date it back to 1975 when I was trying to get the awareness in the community that this creek was both a public resource and a commercial involvement resource, that we could actually begin using this creek as a aesthetic environmental asset for the building of a truly a very modern and advanced community of Vista. So I have to second Mr. Rabel's notion that this is long past due. The value of this particular creek, from my point of view, is that unfortunately, I think that the idea that I had back in '75 was an outstanding idea, but there were very few people in the community, the engineering department included, that didn't seem to have a clue that we had a resource of a free-flowing creek 224 hours a day, 365 days a year. This path is crucial to bringing more and more people in contact with that resource so that they can see that it has some value and that they can bring their opinions to the decision makers of the city to actually do something with this creek. And as well for the developers who will be coming onto that site, which when the economy recovers, this has got to be one of the best pieces of land that we have in Vista, if you consider what the creek is worth. If you consider the creek an MS4 and just a dirty little trench, and you develop it that way, it's never going to be nice. I think the creek walk and this path are going to change the entire perception of what that creek can be doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lopez?
Are you done with the speakers?
We're done with the speakers.
I'd just like to say that there's been quite an effort made here, and we have a lot of good folks in our community who have really spent a lot of free time here and volunteering their time. And Brooks, and all of you have done a great job here, and that's going to be a nice path. You can go from Bringle Terrace almost downtown to Sonic just about, you see, so it's a good idea. Thank you.
Mr. Gronke.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's it's about time we got this done. So thank you so much for all your efforts to the Conservancy. A couple things. Remind me about the nature of the fencing on either side of that trail. The one along the creek side would be.
There is going to be some security fencing placed adjacent to the creek where there's some steep slopes where there's safety issues, and we'll be taking a close look at that along with the Conservancy and where those are going to go. And then on the east side of the trail that would protect it from the remainder of the property, there'll be about a 4 to 5 foot high fence, and we haven't had a final design figured out yet. We've talked about putting artwork along that, or it could be just a regular chain link fence. We're going to have to work that out as the design goes forward, but
Yet to be determined.
has yet to be determined, yes.
Okay. I have talked to the Conservancy on a number of occasions, and I know they have some great ideas for that area and some great fundraising ideas, too, which I look forward to that opportunity. I'd be a little negligent if we didn't just make sure we're clear on the termination agreement. This property is part of a redevelopment area, and we hope to someday develop some type of commercial or retail site or residential site on that. So the Conservancy is clear, the contract is clear and exactly, you talked about a 2-year contract, but that could be, I doubt within the next 2 years the economy is going to turn around, but if it did, they understand that we have control of that property and would gain control of that property if we had someone come in and develop it.
The 2 years is a term that they get it for, period. After that 2-year period, there's a notification clause that allows us to terminate it depending on, depending on the amount of time that we provide notice.
Okay.
And who provides notice, whether it's us or the Conservancy. But there's a termination clause only after the 2 years has run.
After 2 years, okay.
I think we're all probably in agreement that even if it is developed, that whatever work is done there will be carried on and that we'll have a permanent creek facility there. I think that's been a dream of a lot of people over a number of years, as Mr. Nelson and Mr. Rabel have both indicated, and I think that a lot of us have shared that. So that it's a minimum 2 years, but like I said, I'm hopeful that whatever development, if a development ever does take place there, who knows, maybe we might all of a sudden get a bucket of money and make it into a park. You never can tell. But I think that we'll try and preserve what's been done there. Okay, we have an action to take. Who would like to make the motion?
I'd be glad to make the motion that we go ahead along with staff recommendation on the creek.
Okay, and we have a second from Mr. Lopez. Okay, please cast your votes. And that passes with the three of us voting yes. Oh, I think we're going to take about a 5-minute break. 5 minutes. Now it's 4 minutes. I have to get up early, so I'm anxious to get going. Yeah, I've gone to...
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Bill Rawlings, Director of Redevelopment and Housing. And tonight, Jeff Wyman has a short presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Chairman, council members, and members of the Commission. Two of the key objectives for redevelopment are to encourage economic development and to promote positive utilization of the commercial properties within the redevelopment project area. With this as a backdrop, the purpose of this joint public hearing is to consider a purchase and sale agreement and a site and building lease as required by California redevelopment law for the future development of a BMW new car dealership. The BMW project location is 1715 Hacienda Drive in an existing retail center. To provide some background on the project, some time ago, North County BMW approached staff regarding BMW's effort to relocate to a larger location in Vista. Also during this time, the property at 1715 Hacienda Drive was vacated by Circuit City and was put up for sale on the open real estate market. To advance economic vitality within the redevelopment project area and to prevent underutilization of this key commercial property in the project area, staff began negotiations for the purchase of the property. The property was evaluated by the Commission's outside financial consultant, Kaiser Marston Associates, as a potential high-end new car dealership. And in KMA's professional and conservative opinion, the fair market value of the future use was determined to be above $5.7 million. Under the purchase and sale agreement, the Commission would pay $5.7 million. The Commission will need to complete its due diligence within 90 days. For example, the reciprocal parking agreement will have to be amended, and financing will need to be in place within the due diligence period. If all contingencies are met, the CDC will have an additional 30 days to close escrow. Staff has also concluded negotiations for a site and building lease with BMW. The significant terms of the lease are as follows. The lease is a triple net lease with BMW responsible for all costs related to the property. The term of the lease is for 20 years with 2 5-year options. BMW will pay to the Commission a base annual rent and a percentage of annual gross sales. The City and the Commission will also benefit from increased sales tax and tax increment. Working with our financial consultant, it has been conservatively estimated that the unadjusted value of the base rent, percentage rent, sales tax, and tax increment over the full 30 years is estimated at between $32.2 and $43 million. Additionally, the unadjusted value of the property at the lease termination is estimated to be $9.9 million. BMW will invest an anticipated $2.5 million or more into the building and tenant improvements. In exchange for BMW investing $2.5 million, the Commission will credit up to $2.5 million in improvement costs against the rent paid by BMW within the first 6 years. BMW is scheduled to open for business within 9 months of closing on the property. Estimated opening is December 2010. As required by California redevelopment law, a summary report analyzing the transaction has been prepared by Kaiser Marston Associates and is included as Exhibit 8 to the agenda staff report. The summary report outlines the specifics of the transaction and concludes the compensation to be received by the Commission from the lease exceeds the fair market value at its highest and best use, consistent with the redevelopment plan. In addition, the Community Development Department has prepared a negative declaration and initial study checklist declaring that there are no significant environmental impacts associated with the project. With that, the Council and the Commission are requested to consider and approve the purchase and sale agreement and the site and building lease and make findings of benefit regarding the transaction as noted in the agenda report. This concludes staff presentation. We are available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. The public hearing is now open. We have 2 individuals that have requested to speak during the public hearing. And so we'll first hear from Maria Levitt.
Good evening, council members. My name is Maria Levitt. I live at 695 Hillside Terrace in Vista, California. I'm a 4-year resident here, and I've seen and applaud the Vista and how much it has grown. Excuse me for my voice. It has grown quite well, and I'd say that the city has not kept up with the streets, and the congestion and the traffic has just gotten really immense. There's so many street lights, and I really encourage the BMW dealership to purchase it versus the City of Vista. And I would really like to see the City of Vista do something rather than purchase something else. And I'd like you guys to really change the traffic that's really congested a lot over the years. The Sprinter has caused congestion there. It takes me about 8 to 10 minutes to get just to the 78 for my home, and it's just right up the hill here. The new Civic Center, I understand that 25 years ago they had the money to build it, but for some reason it was not built. It's a beautiful building, and I really appreciate it, and I'm sure you do as well. But you've also added sensors to the street because it's inefficient. You know, there's many crossers coming from the school, and I'm sure your council members as well. You know, there could have been other things built, like a crosswalk over instead of, foot traffic. There could be some more expressways, going to and from the freeway and off the freeway. There aren't many off ramps and on ramps. The city, the courthouse, it's real busy. The streets are really congested, and I would really like to see the City of Vista invest more on the city streets versus on a piece of property. And I really would like the DMV to purchase it on their own if they really want that piece of property. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next, Chuck Rabel.
Good evening again. I'll keep it short. I'm not sure that this is a bona fide thing that the city should be getting involved with, but that being as it may, I travel that Emerald Avenue intersections at least once a week. If this is going to go through and it will impact traffic, at least let's get the improvements to Vista Way and things working better at Emerald Vista Way and the 78. With that, I'll sit down. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rabel. There are no other speakers that have indicated they wish to speak. If there is anyone, this is a public hearing. This is the time. Seeing none, council, what's your pleasure? First of all, are there any questions, or Mr. Lopez?
I have a question. There was some talk about, and I'd like it clarified, whether or not, since we're moving it from, they're moving from Oceanside, are we going ahead? Have we settled that? Is there going to be any problems there? I need to know that to make a decision here tonight. I'd like to know.
Councilman Lopez, we've heard nothing from the city of Oceanside affecting this project at all.
Nothing.
Nothing at all.
Okay. Mr. Gronke?
Thank you, Mayor. And with the reciprocal parking agreement, I know there's another pad there for a potential building. We're okay with that. That's been negotiated, or that's still potentially out there to be negotiated.
The reciprocal parking agreement will need to be addressed as part of our closing conditions, and so it is not yet addressed.
And so how close are we to that? Any idea?
If the city moves forward tonight, we will be first on the agenda to bring those negotiations to closure.
Okay, Mr. Campbell?
Thank you, Mayor. Is the applicant here tonight?
Yes.
Somebody representing BMW? Do you think
Yes,
they're
he is.
coming up and introducing themselves? And let me ask a couple questions.
Sure. Mr. Hitchcock, if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Fritz Hitchcock, and my son Ted Hitchcock is the general manager and the day-to-day operator of the dealership. Thank you for the opportunity. We won't give you a long Chamber of Commerce pitch on what great guys we are, but a couple things. One correction, and we appreciate the support of the city to this point in trying to get this deal done. One thing I would correct, because I saw it in the newspaper yesterday, and it's a staff issue, not a staff issue, but the statement of the investment on our part, the $2.5 million is in fact totally wrong. It's $6 million. It's more, the remodel to BMW standards is, and they, by the way, they just changed that 2 months ago, and that added another $1.7 million to the look to make it, which they never had before. They decided that the last, they want them all like McDonald's. Or, I mean, in that look, if you know what I mean, and that, which is okay. It's a very successful company. But anyway, our investment, including furniture, fixture, and equipment, will be $6 million, be more than the purchase price. So I think there's a little more maybe value, and on our side also to the proposition. We're not trying to get in here on the cheap. Obviously, the Costco location, the freeway location makes a lot of difference. Councilman Lopez, your question is a good one. The city of Oceanside, we purchased that store at dealership in August of 2007, looked earnestly within the city for over a year. Then we kicked type. BMW said, we don't care where you go as long as you're on the 78 between the 5 and Melrose Avenue. And Melrose Avenue is the departing part. It's 10 miles plus from the nearest next BMW dealership in Escondido. And that's kind of the rules. So that's kind of the background, if you will, if we could answer.
Mr. Campbell, did you have some questions you wanted to ask?
No idea. It's number one, a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
I'm glad you have good faith in Vista. We have good faith in you. But tell me a little bit about your market segment and what you see going forward in terms of sales projections. I know we're working with a range of sales projections from conservative low to a fairly substantial number. What do you see happening in the next, since you'll open next year, in 2010, what do you see going forward?
We see in all the automotive, I'm relatively active in BMW dealer council issues. I'm also chairman-elect of the California State Chamber of Commerce, Cal Chamber, and have served on various boards and commissions for various governors over the year. And the upside for our state is, as one of you pointed out, is still not too pretty. But as far as the car business, and first of all, the luxury end is not near as much off as the more volume cars. I have a big BMW store in Torrance, and to give you an example, in 2008 we sold 3,740 new BMWs. We'll do about 3,200 this year. However, I also have 3 Toyota dealerships, one in Santa Barbara, whose sales are up slightly year over year. My Northridge dealership in the north corridor of the San Fernando Valley's down about 10%, but my big store in a more general market in City of Industry, California, in the 64, he's almost off 40%. So that's kind of a mixed bag. BMW's demographics are, it's a high-end car. I mean, there's just no getting around it. They're expensive. They're really expensive. But we think the demographics, and BMW does a lot of study before they just say, we ought to do this. The existing dealer opened in 1967 in Continental Motors in Oceanside, always was in the wrong location as the lady said earlier, everything grew. And so it's just an obvious, get moved, get in a great facility and look forward. Our parts and service business is not being taken care of. Our customers are going as far away as Encinitas and Escondido, so we think that what we call the back end, the parts and service business, will be a huge help. We are currently on 1/3 of 1 acre with 5 service stalls. We'll be on 2.52 with 22 service stalls with some ability to expand from there. So we're looking forward to the opportunity.
Just out of curiosity, I was told by another auto dealer that it's a good thing to become an auto mechanic because they're so complex, you really need a fairly good education, and it's a well-paying job. What roughly does an auto mechanic earn today?
A good one earns from $90,000 to $120,000. And by the way, they're no longer technicians or mechanics. They're IT people. It takes about 30 minutes to boot up your BMW for service. And I'm sure it's true at Lexus and Mercedes, for example. I can't speak to the other manufacturers. It's a highly technical business. The current 7 Series has more computer strength, and in fact, it's even a hard drive in the 7 Series than the Challenger space mission did. So it's a very complicated unit.
So if you have 22 stalls, how many mechanics do you anticipate will be working?
20 to 22. We will go from our current 22 total employees to about 60 to start out. And by the year 3.5, we should be at somewhere around 80 to 85. I might add, we will not replace with the same people. I'm sure that Circuit City lost a goodly number of people. Obviously, they may not fit into our business, but those jobs will come back in a different business, if you will. I'm going to guess they had 30 to 40 employees. I have no idea what it takes to, work a store like that 7 days a week. So.
Well, you're bringing some really good jobs to the community, and that's, of course, one of our objectives, as well as having the economic gain of the sales tax generation. Having the property and the guarantee on the lease is important to us.
Yes. Yeah, and we appreciate the opportunity, too.
How long have you owned dealerships, sir?
This isn't my older brother, but I started my career as a factory rep for the Dodge division at Chrysler in 1961, which means I called on dealers for 6 years, and then I worked. I was born. Yeah, that's true. And then I worked for a big dealer for about 1.5 years. I became a new car dealer 40 years ago.
So we're not dealing with somebody who's just doing this as a hobby. So we can expect you and your son will be involved here for some period of time.
Yes. I'm not the retiring type, and frankly, business is such that, first of all, it's still fun. It's a challenge. The timing's probably good, although I wish the guys from the city could go faster on the entitlements and the Phase 1 and all that. But they know.
It's only 8 o'clock.
They know that. But no, we're looking forward to it. We do, even in the down market. Last year, the 5 dealerships I own did over 15,000 new and used cars for about $550 million in gross sales. So we think we know what we're doing. Our BMW store in Torrance is the 4th largest in the country. So.
Have you selected a name?
Yes, BMW of Vista.
Sounds
We
catchy.
can't change the signage in advance like we'd like because, as you know, our current name is North County, and out of respect and whatever, it would be a little confusing until we get the doors open.
Thanks for coming this evening.
Thanks.
Very good. Mr. Gronke, you have some questions?
Sure.
Not of you, and thank you so much for coming
Okay,
to the city,
thanks.
just as Mr. Campbell said. We just heard from the business owner that they're going to put $6 million of improvement into the site, and we have a credit of 2.5, is that right?
That's correct.
And it will not go above 2.5, that'll be the max.
That's correct.
Of our obligation. Fantastic. I want to thank you. I've been a critic in the past because you've always been a dreamer, but seems like your dreams are coming true. So thank you.
Mr. Campbell, did you finish?
I did, sir.
Okay, very good. And are there any other questions? Just Just the only comment I have is that we're looking forward to a long relationship, and we'll work hard. And I think that, to answer Mrs. Levitt, I, too, would like to see a lot more money spent on street improvements, and this year we're going to be spending a little over $2.5 million on street improvements. We're going to continue, and it's because of commercial developments like this that will give us the revenue to even spend more when the appropriate time comes. So thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate them. Is there a motion to close the public hearing and to...
I'd move to close the public hearing, and we have 4 items required to be carried here. Mr. Piper, there on page 2, there are certain findings that we need to make, apparently, and that the disposition of the site is not less than fair market value, and it's in the best interest of the city. The development is necessary for the benefit of the residents. The development will serve to eliminate economic blight. It's certainly, I don't want to see that continue as a Halloween store. It's consistent with our Vista redevelopment plan and implementation plan, and we're authorizing city manager to execute escrow instructions, deeds, and other documents, and other such items as in recommendations.
Mr. Lopez, did you have another question before we can... Oh, okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. You're done, Mr. Campbell?
Unless Mr. Piper says I need to do more.
Yeah.
Mr. Piper, is there any, does that cover the motion?
Covers the waterfront.
Okay, very good. We have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, please cast your votes. Okay, and that passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hitchcock. Mr. Hitchcock?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
No, he gets to keep his job. He just gets to keep his job. Oh, boy.
Good job.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is another public hearing. This is public hearing number 3. It's a 5-year redevelopment and housing implementation plan. Mr. Rollins.
Yes, Mayor and Council. Again, Bill Rawlings, Director of Redevelopment and Housing, and tonight Bill Crane is going to talk with us a little bit about this item.
Good evening, Chairman Vance and members of the Commission. Can you bring my... Just a moment.
Gentlemen, there's really only one meeting in the council chamber going on now. Okay, very good, Mr. Crane.
Thank you. Oh, my goodness. The purpose of this public hearing and presentation is to consider the adoption of the Community Development Commission's 4th 5-year redevelopment and housing implementation plan. State law requires redevelopment agencies to adopt an implementation plan every 5 years. The primary purpose of an implementation plan is to generally describe how an agency will implement its redevelopment plan and inform the public of its intentions, goals, and objectives. Specifically, the implementation plan needs to address how the agency will eliminate blight and address its low and moderate income housing goals. The implementation plan is not required, nor is it intended to be, a step-by-step outline for future redevelopment or affordable housing activities. Therefore, many of the activities listed in the plan are rather general in nature. The implementation plan is intended to provide the agency flexibility to change its activities as conditions warrant or to take advantage of opportunities that may not currently exist. In addition, to provide a clearer picture of redevelopment and the activities of Vista's redevelopment agency, the implementation plan contains sections on the history of redevelopment in California and in Vista, a detailed listing of past projects, and background on some of the agency's current and planned projects. The agency's consultant for the preparation of the implementation plan, Wildan Engineering, was selected through a request for proposal process based on their qualifications, responsiveness, their experience preparing Vista's last 5-year implementation plan, and their submittal of the lowest price bid. Over the past 5 years, the redevelopment agency has been very active, and the implementation plans provides a listing of recent accomplishments. Examples of ways in which the agency has eliminated blight and improved the community over the past 5 years include the following 4 completed projects. Vista Village Phase 4, which is the area where the California Pizza Kitchen, Famous Dave's, and the AT&T store is now. The Old Broadway Lighting and Sidewalks Project, which project included sidewalk installation, street lighting, wheelchair ramps near the city's Wave Water Park. The Townsite Community Center remodel, which includes new offices, conference room, and bathroom improvements, handicap parking, and finally, the redevelopment project area expansion, which expanded the project area by 1,700 acres in September of 2008. As mentioned previously, these and other projects listed in the implementation plan are intended to describe how the agency will achieve its goals and eliminate blight in the project area. Looking forward, the implementation plan provides a listing of the agency's goals, objectives, and describes the projects and programs that will be implemented to achieve these goals. These goals and objectives include, but are not limited to, the provision of public infrastructure improvements such as curbs, gutters, sidewalks, utilities, storm drains, utility undergrounding, street lighting, landscaping, and other improvements necessary for effective redevelopment. To eliminate health and safety hazards which impact the general welfare of the community, to improve and preserve the community's supply of affordable and workforce housing, and to eliminate substandard structures through rehabilitation or demolition. Highlights of the implementation plan for the next 5 years include the Paseo Santa Fe project, Buena Vista Creek project, the downtown mixed-use development, and the continuation of the redevelopment community improvement project that is completing sidewalk and other street-related infrastructure improvements in the town site and North Vista communities. Finally, I would like to reiterate the implementation plan is deliberately broad and flexible to allow projects to be added and opportunities to be acted upon. A project not currently on the implementation plan list could be commenced so long as it is in furtherance of the redevelopment plan and the Commission's goals. In closing, the 5-year redevelopment housing implementation plan was considered and discussed by the Redevelopment Project Action Committee, who voted unanimously to approve the implementation plan and recommend that the Commission also approve the plan. We are pleased to have the opportunity to present you the agency's 4th 5-year redevelopment and housing implementation plan. This concludes staff presentation. We are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and so the public hearing is now open, and we have one speaker, Mr. Rabel.
Good evening for the last time. Affordable housing, I've been here an awful lot, and it's on the table today. We did ask for a year-over-year net change, and on page 34 there is part of it. What's missing is the negatives. Since the Housing Fund cleared the property at Sycamore Creek, redevelopment should take the hit of that 118 units or whatever was there. Without question, the 30-plus units that were at Lado de Loma that became a parking lot for Lowe's or became a parking lot for Ford and the Lowe's project. Anyway, I asked, if you look at the history, they've realistically, one other point on page 34, Solutions Family Center, let's take credit for everything, even though the city's contribution wasn't that much, and it was a shared funding, okay? But the city will take credit for it, no problem.
Only if you say so.
Pardon?
Only if you say so.
Well, they just did. Page 34. We go to page 38. We're going to have 72 units as far as the eye can see, even though the record says there's no experience with those kind of numbers. But it's a requirement that you have a plan, and I guess you have a plan, and I guess you're going to prove it. Have a great evening. As long as the bars are open, I'm headed out of here.
Thank you, Mr. Rabel. We've enjoyed your comments this evening. Are there any others in the audience that wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the council?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to close the public hearing and...
say something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lopez, yeah, he did have, I'm negligent in that.
Thank you. That's all right, no problem. I'd just like to say is that way back when they started redevelopment, I'm glad that I was part of it, and Mr. Vance and Bob, had a big part in it back then. If they hadn't done that back there and had that vision, we wouldn't be here today with what we're doing here today. Kind of a question for Mr. Rollins. They talk about housing. Do you have, I know that higher density will be in the Santa Fe corridor area. Do you, just off the top of your head, do you know how many units that we'll be able to put, since it's higher density in that area? Do you have any kind of idea to satisfy sometimes people come up and say we're not doing enough? That will be our high density. What kind of numbers do you have for that?
Yes, I'd like to share that with the action today, earlier tonight, approving the Terry project, that would bring a total of about 440 units that are currently under contract. And as I've said before in the past, redevelopment, sometimes it takes a long time to get things done. But in the conduit right now, we have about 440 units that are under contract tonight, as of tonight. Of those, about 91 are affordable units, and of those 91 affordable units, about 21 are for special needs. As it relates to the entire Santa Fe development, our consultants and our evaluation thinks that with the higher density, we can have as many as 15 to 1,900 units in that development with the higher densities, of which a significant portion of those could be affordable units.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other? I see we do have I guess we never did get a second, did we?
Well, I'll be glad to second, but I do have a question.
Certainly.
Thank you. Density that you're talking about in that Paseo area, please. What sort of density per acre are you talking about?
The density that we're looking at is between 35 and 40 per unit, per acre.
Okay, very good. Just a comment back to the council. Mr. Lopez is correct. The mayor, at the time city manager, and myself had the opportunity to help develop the redevelopment plan. And in clearing out some boxes and files, I came across one of the pieces that we turned out as the project was going for approval. And I'm very pleased to say we've accomplished over 85% of the goals that we set out in 1985. And I'm also pleased to state that I still have some hair left.
20 years ago.
Yeah, it was a fun time. Anyone else? Any other comments before we take a vote? Okay, please cast your votes. Okay, and that passes unanimously. We'll next go to oral communications. Our first speaker under oral communications, again, this is a 3-minute time limit, and it is on items that aren't currently on the agenda or weren't on the agenda this evening. And the first is Mr. Robert Cunin. Is that correct?
brother gets a boat, and he calls it Can-Do, and I'm his brother with it. What I've got here, my name is Mr. Cunnin, and I live at 707 Hilo Way in Vista. And I've been here before on the same subject, and the Mayor Vance had told me to meet with the fire department, which I did, and they said that they didn't do the work that they were supposed to, and that was with Gary Fisher. Now, in this, I get a letter on October the 1st from Grover, and it says, and I'm going to quote this, because you should have the packet, but they said you didn't get it, so anyways, I sent it about 11 days ago. On the fourth sentence, a quote was, "We were able to verify that no work was done on," I'm going to say parcel 1, or parcel 2, and he did clear weeds on parcel 2. I'm going to say it again. No work was done on parcel 1. Now, I was here saying, challenge them that no work was done there, but yet we all the council here voted that I'm going to pay a tax lien against the weed abatement. Now, in this here, I was under the impression when I talked to Grover that this was all taken care of. Neither parcel 1 nor parcel 2 was taken care of ever by the fire department in weed prevention. Okay, so the letter says we were able to verify that no work was done on parcel 1. Now that changed the whole setup, but they did take off the $500 tax lien against the property. But they didn't take off the $500 tax lien on the second property. Now, the first property and the second property were done there simultaneously. No fence between them. You just go from one to the other. And I did bring a fellow with me that has helped me out an awful lot. He was in a bad accident at work, and so he does not employable, so he helps me out myself. Okay, now, in this, I said this. The last sentence should have read, he did not clear weeds from parcel 1, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused, and therefore eliminate the weed abatement tax lien. So that's what I'm here for, is to say that no city, Vista, anybody cleared the weeds off on parcel 2, even though they said that he said he did. Well, if he lied on once, he started this problem. When I say he, this is the person that did the weed clearing. This all started in January, mid-January of '09. And it's still going on. In mid-January, I'll have an anniversary coming up. Now, I don't know on Mr. Piper there, if he's aware of the fellow that lied on the first parcel, and why would he lie on the second one? It came from your. It came from you. It came from your.
We're going to refer this matter to you anyhow, so.
I've already spoken to Mr. Cuban and saw the letter that we sent.
Okay.
So my question then winds up being, is that I am requesting a reversal of the City of Vista weed abatement tax lien placed on, which would be the parcel 2. No work has ever been done. And I have the fellow here with me that does the work for me as a helper and help him out too. So I'm all finished, that's all. I'm kind of discussing what's happening for the time limit. My time limit taking so long when it started off, when all they had to do was say, hey, you're right, nobody showed up out there. Instead, they kept it going to where it went from one person, went to the other person, then went to city council, and the next thing you know, out of clear blue skies, I got tax lien on 2 pieces of property that the work is already completed, and there was nobody from the city ever worked on it. I showed here with 2 people the last time that were businessmen here, and very good people to have as a witness, and they're my neighbors, and they verified that there was no work done on the parcel they're talking about. That's all I got to say on it. Anyways, I feel kind of bad because that guy had $6.5 million problem, and here I am with a $500 problem. It sounds like I'm in the wrong pew.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kuhn. Did Brent Nichols wish to speak?
Yeah, Brent Nichols, 703 Hilo Way. I'm just here to support Mr. Cunnin, and this last 3 or 4 years, him and I have done any weed abatement. We've done it ourselves. There hasn't been any city fire department or anyone else out there cutting weeds. This last year, the weeds were so high in the area that was in question, that typically that area we don't cut because the hillside is we had to get a ladder to come up down the hillside to cut those weeds. So I can't imagine the city or the fire department going out there and cutting weeds on that hillside, because we had a terrible, difficult time cutting them ourselves. And they were like 8 feet tall in some areas, above my head. Anyways, so there's no way they could have been cut. I mean, for that amount of growth.
So we
Thank you.
can't take any action under the oral communications, so Mr. City Attorney, what's your suggestion? Now, you have responded to this gentleman?
Actually, we met with Mr. Coonan. We went over in detail the maps that he had and learned that there seemed to be some question about one of the parcels that had been liened. And then we interviewed the person who did the weed cutting and determined that he had not gotten the correct parcel numbers. He had not cleaned any weeds on one of the parcels that was liened, and we caused finance to reverse the lien on that parcel. According to the information he supplied us, he did cut weeds on the other parcel, and therefore, we didn't make any change. So that's by way of information.
The question was, and then Brent was telling us that there's a very small part that's probably about 30 foot by 15 foot that is on a hillside. And before, I'm a contractor, general contractor, engineering contractor, and by trade. Now, I and him said, well, let's cut it down this year. Well, we kept some of the weeds that we got where we couldn't cut on the hillside because we had a person from the fire department tell us if it's too steep to cut, you don't have to worry about it. The patch was small. And that fellow's name was George Lucia. He's not around anymore, I don't think. Now, in this patch where this thing was that we cut on top of the hill, I had to get baseball shoes with spikes in it to make it up the hill. Brent pulled out a ladder, and he had to go up this ladder, and the parcel was no bigger than what you got right in through here. That was not cut. Everything else was cut by us. I handle the disc, he handles the weed eater. So when that parcel was not cut, when we went up and cut it, when Mr. Fisher came out and visited us, we cut it down. Well, the weeds were this high in that partial that we were told about 7, 8 years ago when George Lusui was working there, and I know he's a representative of the fire department pretty high up, and he says, when it gets that way, you don't have to cut it. And as a general contractor, I sit on the back of pickup trucks, and I tell all the guys that work for me once a month, I said, safety, 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 safety. I'm responsible, directly responsible for the safety if I tell somebody, yeah, you can do it, and they can't do it. Well, when I got on that hillside and twisted my leg, I knew that I was right in the past. It's not that important. And another thing is that on my engineering, I had worked for the Bureau of Land Management in Lopez Canyon on Pinecrest School.
Okay, Mr. Keenan, I think we
As
get the
fire
general
department,
picture.
as somebody knowing
So I
what-
think what the point is right now, it's you're saying one thing, the city's saying another thing. And,
No, it's not.
Well, I think that's the case, isn't it?
That is the case.
Is that our contractor says that he did cut the weeds on the parcel, and you're saying that he did not cut the weeds on the parcel?
Yes, and now I have 3 witnesses, neighbor witness that verified here before you before. They came and did it.
You've met with the city attorney, and you've given him that information?
I don't hear from him. If I talk to him, that's why I sent the packet in front of you here.
With Mr. Keenan?
We met.
You met with Mr. Piper, and you met with the fire...
Say it again?
You met with the city attorney, and you met with the fire chief.
I met with the city attorney when the city attorney looked on his screen prior to the fire chief. I called the fire chief, and he was with his deputy.
As I said before, there's no action that we can take tonight, and if there's a change in what the fire chief and the city attorney find, then we'll contact you.
Okay, what I want to ask you to do this too is, I can't get this, so I asked them if I can have the name of the person who said he did the job. That's
No, I don't think that's possible, is it? Well, I'll leave it to the city attorney.
I don't think that would be appropriate under the circumstances.
Okay.
That's where all the problems started, from the time in January to now. But anyways, what would the next move is? You're going to let me know. Now, when? Because I don't get an answer. Mayor, I don't get an answer
I'm not sure that there is
from
a
you.
next move. I think the city attorney has indicated that he sent you a letter with the city's position. Is that right, Mr. Piper?
That's correct. We sent the letter. We said we are removing the lien on one parcel and we're keeping it on the
So
other
now my
parcel.
next
And that
move is
was
going to have to be in the court?
Yes.
I don't think, Darrell, I think you're in the wrong pew for some reason or another. You know what's going
Okay,
on. Now,
well, thank
why
you
is
very
the-
much,
Why is the
Mr.
fight
Coon.
on a piece of property? Why would it make sense for us? I don't even think you knew what property you were on. You know?
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. It's...
Okay, we've concluded oral communications. The next is remarks. Mr. City Attorney, do we have any further remarks?
My further remark is Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Okay. Mrs. Gelder.
Yes, just wanted to mention real quick, Mr. Prum, who is the Public Works Director for Carlsbad, was here earlier, but he had his own council meeting to go to. He just came to thank the city of Vista for helping with the recent sewer overflow event in Carlsbad, and that he wanted to say that he wanted to thank Vista for being such a good neighbor to Carlsbad. Also, I wanted to say that there are a number of these items going forward that the League of California Cities will have their initiative in place to ask all public officials and anybody else that to gather 100 signatures and also donate $100 for the campaign to put on the ballot for to protect the rest of our property, our revenues that are vulnerable by the state. And that's next November of 2010. Looks like it'll be shaping up to be something pretty, a pretty significant ballot that will have many reform measures on it. There are several movements afoot to try to see what can be done about the shape that California is in. There's a group called California Forward. There's another reform movement that's trying to get a constitutional convention formed. And, excuse me, maybe Mayor Pro Tem Campbell knows, there's a third group along with, and then there's, of course, the fourth one is the initiative by the League of California Cities, which is just looking out for local governments' revenues. So it's going to be an interesting battle, as well as, there aren't any new funds or revenue sources looking at, but we're trying to look at the legislative process and see what makes sense for California. So it will be an interesting year. Thank you.
Has it not been an interesting year for the past 5 or 10 years?
It has been, yes.
Mr. Gronke.
Two things, Mayor. First of all, I get a download on my internet from a thing called a CEO, which is kind of basically a city manager's website. And one of the things that was brought up was the fact that nationwide, the area between Carlsbad and San Marcos was one of the safest places to live in a nation. So I think kudos to the Sheriff's Department for that. Thank you so much. The other thing I have is a congratulations out to City Council member Rocky Chavez from Oceanside, who's been promoted to the Undersecretary of Veterans Affairs. So congratulations, Rocky. And, good luck with that.
Okay, Mrs. Ritter.
That'll make interesting politics in Oceanside, won't it? I don't really have anything.
Mr. Campbell.
Thank you. Mrs. Ritter's, I'm sorry, Mrs. Gelder's comments about the League. There is cooperation between the League and the California Transit Association on that particular initiative to try and also protect funds for transit, which have been taken away for a period of at least 5 years. And the Supreme Court held recently that the state shouldn't have taken those monies away, but the state has no capability to pay them back. So we're in a dry spell, and North County Transit will survive this budget year with its current budget through some very prudent actions we took earlier. But Metropolitan Transit is now looking for the balance of this fiscal year to carve out another $10 million out of their operations. So we're in a world of hurt. This is one thing the council could do individually or even collectively. They could, in fact, endorse this initiative as individuals, and I'll have some materials from the league that'll be available, or as the city manager will. Also, the league is asking for councils to consider, as a council, endorsing this initiative as well. I'd wish the Marines a happy birthday, which is up. Is today, I believe.
It is.
And we had the pleasure of meeting Colonel Morano at his place recently. And one thing that he told me that was very disturbing was in calendar year 2008, more Marines died on motorcycle accidents than were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan combined. And they're doing very intensive training to get the kids to slow down on their sports bikes to improve safety. And unfortunately, though, the numbers have changed differently. So this year, there's more being killed in Iraq and Afghanistan through motorcycle accidents. But I'm sure hoping that we'll be able to protect our youth here.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
Well, I'm glad that the last two fellows waited there for this whole council to be over with, and one just left. So, but anyhow, I'd like to thank Bill Rollins and his staff for all the hard work that they've done in our downtown area. It's up and down, I know, with dealing with commercial property and businesses, but I think he's done a great job, and I hope he continues to do the job he's doing. Also, we have a new restaurant in town. I'd like to tell the folks around the Sonic to have patience, because it's a new restaurant, and people are going there. Hopefully it'll calm down in a month or two, and things will be back to normal. And thanks, Dave, for coming to Vista, because you make the best cherry limeade. That's very good, very good. So thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank him for. Go ahead.
And have a great Thanksgiving to all of you, and hope all your families are well and get together, and don't worry about eating a lot of turkey, because you can always go on a diet later.
I understand from the corporate people in Sonic that this is the best looking Sonic in the whole chain, and it's probably been the most successful Sonic in the whole chain during this last week, and I too am appreciative of Dave for working so hard to bring it, and for staff to work so hard with him, because that's one thing they did mention, was that they got great cooperation from the city in coming here, and I hope they don't ever slow down. I think that that's a real asset to the community. Also, tomorrow I'd like to invite the city council. I'd like to invite the city council to Walmart tomorrow. We have the annual Veterans Day ceremony there, and I think that they've done a great job over the past years, I should say, to pay tribute to the veterans, those who have not only that are still with us, but those that have passed on as well. And both them, and I believe it's the VFW or the American Legion? American Legion, yeah. That helps in this process, and they just do an outstanding job. So I invite you all to come and share. I know it's too bad. It's at 11 o'clock, and it's in the parking lot there at Walmart. Now, Mrs. Geldert had just one more comment she'd like to make.
I want to say Happy Veterans Day, and thank you to all the veterans who have served, and certainly for my father, who will be 90 in February, who was in World War II and with the Flying Tigers in China, Burma, and India, and just to thank them for all their sacrifices that they've made.
With that, this meeting is adjourned.